Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the City of Mason. Tonight, our February 22nd business meeting. It's time to call this meeting to order with a roll call, please.
Here.
Councilmember Nelson.
Here.
Councilmember Bradburn.
Present.
Councilmember Stricula.
Here.
Vice Mayor Gilb. Councilmember Hunterlaw.
Here.
Mayor Grossman.
Here. And Vice Mayor Gilb is with us. He is coming in through technology, in case you didn't hear him. And Denny, I forgot to ask you if it was okay to start. Were we good? Okay, good. We don't have to do a do-over. Sorry about that. All right. Well, we always start our meetings covering it with prayer, and our chaplain, Pastor Phil Blodgett, is here to start us out, and we'll immediately follow that with the Pledge of Allegiance. So if you could stand with us, please.
Let's pray. Heavenly Father, God, we thank you for just this city that you've given to us. We thank you for the chance to live here, and we thank you for our leaders. We thank you for the people who have gone before us to make this City of Mason a great place for our families and for the businesses. God, we do ask for our community and the communities around us who have been affected by COVID. God, we pray for our doctors, our nurses, our frontline workers. We pray for our teachers, and we pray for our students, God, and all those who have been affected either by the sickness, the illness, or those who have been affected by the loss of a loved one or the sickness. God, we ask for peace. We ask for comfort. We ask for your grace. We thank you for our police, our paramedics, our firefighters. Thank you for their protection that they give us. God, we do ask for this council meeting tonight that you'll grant wisdom to all those involved, understanding, and God, may they have clear ideas and clear picture of what you want for this city. We ask this in Christ's name. Amen.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Thank you, Pastor. Have a wonderful week. All right, we need to have a motion to approve the minutes from the January 25th council meeting. Those minutes were tabled. Did you have any?
Yeah, if I could, I wanted to untable those if possible. I decided not to go ahead and try to do a revision on those. I thought it was, I think we've covered it enough through all the videos that's out there on where I stand on those. I will elect maybe in the future to go through and try to answer each question again, but I've answered all of them. It seems like it's already out there. I just felt the need at the time to put it on the minutes, but if so, I'll do that again in the future. I'll just do it. I'll comment during old new news or something in the future if I need to.
Thank you. Do we need to take a motion? We need a motion to remove it from the table. So we got that from Councilmember Hunterlaw. So is there a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you. All in favor?
Yes.
Any opposed? Good. All right. So we need a motion to adopt those minutes from January 25th.
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Yes.
Any opposed? Do we have an abstention? I don't think so. All right. I need a motion to approve the minutes from the February 8th council meeting.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Yes.
Any opposed?
Abstain.
Thank you. All right. It's time for the city manager's report, item 6 on our agenda.
Thank you, Mayor. Just have a couple of items wanted to draw council's attention to. A reminder, March 10th, 11th, and 12th are member appreciation days at the community center. This year especially, wanted to express appreciation to all of our members at the community center. So those days there will be prize drawings. Members can bring a friend free without having to use one of their guest passes. Also wanted to draw some attention, not that it needs attention, but we've had several snow events since we last met. In fact, this season, we've had over 20 snow and ice events that the city crews have been out. Sorry, can you hear me now? City crews we've had over 20 snow and ice events this year that city crews have taken responsibility for getting that snow and ice removed. I thought it was interesting. I know we've talked about before, but the city, I think, is fairly unique in that we use that instant command structure. to make snow and ice removal the priority across the city, which means folks from every city department are involved to whatever extent they can, either getting in plows, backfilling folks that are in plows, helping to handle the calls. That has worked extremely well for us and able to take what's a massive amount of work and get that done both efficiently as well as hopefully fast. One asset that's been highlighted this year is the salt storage facility. And while that is great and allows us to store salt, when you have several events, and snow is funny because it acts throughout the whole region, which means everyone is dealing with it at the same time. Everyone's asking for salt at the same time. We got to the point where we did need to ration it out because we just weren't able to get the deliveries fast enough. We had the capacity, but everyone wanted the same thing at the same moment. But what I did want to point out, one snow event on February 12th had some stats on that. There's about 7 inches of snow, which means we used, and we were rationing at this time, about 525 tons of salt to help the roads be clear. The crews drove a total of almost 8,000 miles in the trucks to get that snow removed. That was about 1,700 gallons of fuel that had to be used, and about a total of right on 1,500 hours, labor hours that were used. But I didn't think that was as interesting, so we got some folks, some engineering type folks, as well as others, finance, engineering, to turn that into a little bit different numbers. For that one snow event, that means that 12 million cubic feet of snow were removed from the roads, Mason roads. And I didn't think that was interesting enough either. So we stretched the engineers and had them work with some more creative types, like city manager types or administrative types. What that amount of snow is equivalent to is a couple of things. It could make a cylinder about 144 feet in diameter and 750 feet tall, which, if proportioned correctly, means it would have built a snowman about as tall as the WLW Tower. It also would have been, for that snowman, about 200 million snowballs, about a 3-inch diameter, which is about 6,000 snowballs per every man, woman, and child that lives in the city of Mason. It also would have made about 151 snow forts, about the size of the new competition pool for that snowman and those snowballs to participate in. That was just one snow event, and it wore staff out trying to figure that out, so we didn't try and do any math for the whole season. But I did want to use that to illustrate snow removal is difficult work, and I think the city can be pretty proud under those type of circumstances with how well all the resources were able to be mobilized to handle that issue. Also,
Mayor, I have to. It's obvious somebody has too much free time on their hands.
Kurt is very busy. He was out plowing some of that.
I apologize.
I was going to apologize to the engineers for having to be creative, Kurt.
On a different note, wanted to draw attention to 2 Mason businesses. One downtown business, Two Cities Pizza, found out that they were notified that Yelp, that's a kind of a crowdsourced business review. Yelp released their top 100 places to eat in the country, and Two Cities Pizza in Mason, Ohio was number 79, competing with some pretty high places. And then in a different note, and I do have a headline here that staff liked, From Mason to Mars. L3 Harris, Mason Company, the technology that was developed here in the city of Mason was the transceiver. So some articles compared it to the cell phone that the Mars rover Perseverance took to Mars and is in use and expected to be in use as technology that was developed by one of our corporate partners here in Mason. So I wanted to give you a little bit of taste of how Mason's, both out in space as well as highlighted in cyberspace, I guess, both on one and the other. Last item, Mayor, is just by way of introduction here. Our partners include both those businesses as well as Sinclair College, and Madeline Isley and Chad Bridgman are here to present that. Also just wanted to point out, it was 14 years ago on President's Day that Sinclair College broke ground for their facility here in Mason. They've expanded both physically as well as our partnership with them. So we're grateful to have them give a brief presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome, guests. Hi.
Thank you, Mayor Grossman, members of council. Thank you, Eric, for that lovely introduction. And remembering that day that we broke ground, except it wasn't a groundbreaking, it was also a snow event day. So it was actually a snow shoveling instead of a groundbreaking. But obviously the beginning of many great things and even more to come. So that's what we're here to tell you about today, is to give you an update. But first, let me give a little bit of context for those of you who are newer to council and who weren't able to join us for the snow shoveling event so many years ago. Sinclair is named for David Sinclair, who was the general secretary of the YMCA in Dayton in the late 1800s. He founded the term "find the need and endeavor to meet it," and that continues to be our motto yet to this day. What he realized was that there were many and underemployed, particularly men, loitering the streets of Dayton at that time. And when you think about it, the economy in those days was shifting from agriculture to heavy industry. Well, those men simply didn't have the technical skills for that new economy. And so here are some lovely historical photos. That's David Sinclair right there in the middle on the bottom photo, obviously showing early classes in machining and blueprint drawing and reading and even automotive technology. So Sinclair's been around for a long time, 134 years, and we are focused now on 3 strategic priorities: alignment to the local economy, growth. Of course, the local economy will grow as it has the talent that it needs to continue to grow, and individual graduates grow as well as their employers. And then, of course, equity, making sure that everyone, regardless of their circumstances, has access to the training and education that they need. Sinclair is a large institution. When you look at every year, about 30,000 students attend Sinclair. Now, 60% of them roughly are part-time. So many working adults, the average age of a Sinclair student is about 30, 29 or 30. But when you look at that number and you think about the undergraduate enrollment at UC, Sinclair is second only to UC when it comes to numbers of students that are engaged on an annual basis. You know that we have 5 locations. If you've driven up I-75 through Dayton, you've seen the Sinclair campus right off of the highway there. 2 small centers that are attached to YMCA branches, kind of a back to the future thing there, off of I-70 in Huber Heights and Englewood, a brand new campus center in Centerville, right across the street from Miami Valley Hospital South, in a growing area there. And then, of course, you know where we are here in Mason. When you look at the number of students, it makes sense that many of them, most of them reside right in Montgomery County, but clearly significant number in Warren. And just a few interesting maps. These are the graduates of last year and where they reside. And you can see the map even kind of cuts off there. So it goes down into Hamilton and even across the river into northern Kentucky. And then when you look at the Mason campus enrollment, so these are students who are only the students enrolled at Mason. You can see by zip code, the deepest penetration is in the Lebanon area, in Mason, of course, but then even as you go west and you look into Hamilton and Middletown, the Mason campus draws students from Butler and Claremont counties as well. The purpose of Sinclair in Warren County is to increase the educational attainment of Warren County residents. We were approached about 20 years ago by a group of Warren County leaders seeking more higher education opportunities for residents of this county. And you can see that, especially since that moment in time there, the 2007-08 school year, which is when we opened the Sinclair Mason campus, there has been a significant increase in credentials earned. All right, so what's happening now? clearly with the location of the campus right there in the middle of some significant advanced manufacturing developments. And my goodness, I drove down from Dayton and I see all the dirt moving for the Vega America campus. Wow, that's huge. So when you look at how perfectly our campus is located, it just made a lot of sense to invest in industrial maintenance technology, which is an entry-level advanced manufacturing position employed by many different kinds of manufacturers. And the Sinclair board elected to invest $1.2 million in industrial maintenance technology at the Mason campus. So let me show you a few images. If you've been to the Dayton campus, you know that the buildings there are numbered. So of course, in Mason, we have lettered buildings, buildings A and B. So this is in building B, also known as the Bernard H. Wright building. Barney, of course, is the treasurer now of Warren County, excuse me, but had been a board chair at Sinclair for some years. So this represents about a little over 6,000 square feet in building B. And you can see that they were mostly just regular classrooms. That whole space is being opened up for a advanced manufacturing lab, which will look like this with some really cool equipment in it. And here's some of the construction going on right now. But I wanted to show this to you specifically. If you look at the photo on the left with the windows, that's actually the main entry into the building, the main hallway. We specifically asked the architects to cut window openings into the lab area so that other students can see the cool stuff going on in that lab. So it'll be another great way to promote this program and all the really fun, hands-on kinds of machines that will be in there. Now, I'm going to hand it over to my colleague, Chad Bridgman, who's the Director of Work-Based Learning. Chad is at the nexus of connecting students with employers through this education and training program. And he's going to tell you a little bit more about this program in particular and apprenticeships specifically.
Thank you. Thank you, Madeline, and thank you for having us tonight. So in front of you, you do see a list of programs, and you're probably wondering yourself, well, what are these programs? What is going on here? The industrial maintenance, when you think about it, you probably used a tube of toothpaste this morning or maybe later this evening. Well, some person just didn't magically put that toothpaste in that tube. It was probably filled by a robot. Well, what happens when those robots fail to communicate? What happens when they don't function appropriately? You probably have to reset them. You probably have to troubleshoot them. That's exactly what the industrial maintenance technology position does. And as you look through those lists up there, you're probably thinking, Internet of Things, I think I've heard of that. I might even use it at home. If you think of the Alexis Echo Dot that you might have, and you tell it to do something, magically lights turn on, they turn off. Well, it's not magic, but it is. But through the world of technology, you allow items to connect together so they communicate, so a process can be done. Well, as you're looking around the area, especially here with advanced technology, these companies are using this technology to communicate from one machine to another machine. Hey, machine, I'm done making this. Are you ready for this part? Yes, I am. So a robot moves it over. That's what is beginning to change and evolve our workplace, but more importantly, are our students ready for this? Which then really kind of launches us into us really being poised for work-based learning here at the Mason campus and here in the Mason area. And why this is important that we hear more than ever right now, hey, I have individuals who are retiring. What am I going to do? How do I recruit, retain, and grow my future workforce? How do we combine this together? Work-based learning is that bridge. It's an okay experience for an individual to work and learn and maybe one day get their associate's degree, maybe one day then obtain that bachelor's degree. Remembering that not all students get the same opportunity to be able to go off right away to a university. So how do we help an individual that might be struggling financially to also launch their professional career? Well, one way might be through work-based learning. So some of the companies you might recognize up here are companies that have engaged with us already or in the past. Big proponents of internships. Often what we find with students who participate in an internship, and I know your high school here also participates with internships, is that when a student has a really valuable experience, they want to stay there. They want to grow with that company. And something weird happens with that student's experience. They think they have to go get the degree to get the job, but guess what? They already have the job. And they have the job because someone was willing to take a chance on them. And that's really what we do. We help these companies that you see before you take a chance on a student. We help guide and grow that individual behind the scenes. And then lastly, registered apprenticeships. Sometimes that's a lot of burden to carry on someone's shoulders. So we want to make that easier for a company to help guide and grow their future workforce. Here's a quick example to kind of paint the picture. Most students who participate on an apprenticeship are employed before they begin doing their academics. Why is that important? Because I want to make sure, will the student show up? Will they help out? Are they a team player? Sound familiar? Soft skills? Can they contribute? And if they can do all that and they have aptitude, skill, and ability, then let's see what program can help grow. So this is some of the training models we are using out of the Mason campus right now. You probably hear the word apprenticeship a lot, and it's probably not going to go away. Right now, we have Gen Zers who are in the process of going through their high school graduation, wondering, what is my future going to look like? Well, their future is actually here. Some of them will be graduating this May and June, but how will we help them and how will we help them grow? Mark here is a big proponent of apprenticeships and answering the reason why. What's next for me? What will I do next? How will I grow? And what's my purpose? Where do I fit in? One thing that you will find across the board, these students want to have an engaging learning experience. And that's what an apprenticeship does. It allows them to open up the door. It allows a company to figure out how to grow and tap into the best resources and talents that student has. So again, one thing that's going to continue to grow is this earn and learn model. Festo, for example, we're kind of the pioneers as far as German models go. And with them, when they launched here, Sinclair did partner with Festo, and they're still partner with Festo. And it's another good example of demonstrating how students can earn and learn. And behind me is a picture of our second graduation. And with that, I'll turn it back to Madeline.
But we are not stopping here. There's still much work yet to be done. At the most recent Strategic Outlook Symposium that Sinclair hosted, Tom Friedman was one of our speakers, and he uttered this quote, and I had to quickly scribble it down because it was so perfect. The Stone Age didn't end because we ran out of stones, right? There is still so much ahead of us, and unless we keep up with it, technology in this case, increasingly rapidly changing and morphing and allowing new things, we're going to be left back in the Stone Age. So the next step that Sinclair has undertaken is to plan to look at Industry 4.0 and to assess our programs to make sure that they are providing that right kind of technological advancement so that we can, again, continue to be aligned and grow with the community. Chad explained it perfectly, the Internet of Things. The Internet, of course, data, big data, allowing machines and people to be connected even more efficiently. So we've engaged the National Coalition of Advanced Technology Centers to help us do an assessment. This is the plan. In fact, we're hosting 11 focus groups in mid-March, and we have a number of Mason folks who have been invited to participate in those. I think 5 different companies, the school superintendents, both Mason schools and King's, economic development professionals, and others to help us understand what the needs of the economy are here and throughout Southwest Ohio so that we can be ahead of the curve to skate to where the puck is going, right? And be ready for Industry 4.0. So that's the next big development that I anticipate, especially at the Mason campus. That's why this first investment of $1.2 million is so important, because it really sets the Mason campus up to be a leader in that next wave of advanced technology. So thank you again for having us here today.
Thank you. What a wonderful presentation. I have a favor to ask if you can find it. It was maybe halfway through your presentation where we were first introduced to IMT or industrial maintenance technology, and you had a number there related to jobs.
Yes.
And I wasn't fast enough. I'd really like to see that again.
Oh, forgive me. I'm going to go back. It was like 3,200 positions open.
Yeah, that's a significant number.
Yes, in specific counties. Here, oh my gosh, it's way more than that. Almost 4,000 job postings in 2019 in this, 4-county area here: Warren, Butler, Hamilton, and Claremont. And obviously, really living wages. These are entry-level positions. I mean, these are there are many, of course, but it could be a springboard then for further study and even more refined skills and with the rapid increase in technology, we all have to become lifelong learners, right? Because we need to keep up. And so these are great foundational programs to help particularly our young citizens be contributing and ahead of the curve.
I really appreciate this presentation and informing us and reminding us that Sinclair is there and a powerful force in education here in our county and in our city. When I first became mayor, we started a new committee called the Educational Initiatives Committee, and then COVID hit. So we only had one meeting, but we were talking about how we can come up alongside educational institutions like Sinclair and all of our schools in Mason as elected officials, and what can we do to support you? So we've started to explore that process, and it's been on hold, but you've come in here and reminded us that there are probably things that we can be doing.
Well, I would also like to come back to council in a few months after we go through this Industry 4.0 assessment. We will receive from the NCATC, our consultants, a set of recommendations, and we're specifically asking them to look at what should be located at the Mason campus and at the Dayton campus, so that we're not duplicating, but we're putting the right resources, the right assets in the right places. And I would love to come back and share with you what those recommendations are. And I'm sure that there will be elements of that will really need your support.
Great. Well, we look forward to having you back. I think another thing I'd like to point out, it's that time of year where high school seniors are making important decisions, and this is another wonderful option for them. And I think sometimes we don't realize that modern technology and modern manufacturing is very, very clean. Is something you'd like to say to expand that thought?
Yeah, I think often, people use the term dark, dingy, dirty, right? Manufacturing. But if you go to Procter & Gamble, we can't be dark, dingy, and dirty because you probably wouldn't use their products. L3 is another good example. We've had interns there before in the past. Not that you would want to, but you could eat off the floor. It's the evolution. It's the terminology that we use. I joke with Madeline, no student's going to wake up and say, gee, Willikers, today I'm going to be an industrial maintenance engineer. Doesn't make sense. But they could be a controls engineer, but part of the groundwork to get there is an industrial maintenance. So you begin to build. More often, I think we forget who our students are. I think we forget that kid who was in 3rd grade and 4th grade who played with the Legos, played with Connects in their bedroom. Look, Mom, look what I made. Look, Dad, what I made. We forget that that's a skill and ability, and that's what we're tapping into. We're showing students that it's okay if you love to put something together, you love to build something, and it's exposing that. It's showing students that there's multiple ways for people to be successful. And often, too, one of the things that we find with our students on interns and apprenticeship, they have the skill and ability, they just didn't have the right mentor. They didn't have the right coach. Or there's always someone who outshined them in high school, but now it's their moment to shine. And that's really what we're unlocking here. You're finding the companies, the names of companies that I listed up there. Those are companies who authentically support professional and academic development. And that's a unique term. The idea of thinking that it's okay for a student to earn and learn their way to a bachelor's degree, you probably would find more often than not, there's a lot of people who have to go that route. And so we have to be okay. We have to be comfortable. You're asking like, what could you do? It's us being comfortable at the fact that there's multiple ways for someone to be successful. Not all of us knew exactly what we wanted to do. Those seniors don't know exactly what they want to do, but who will be there for them when they fall, and where's their net that they can come to and kind of come back and retool, redesign themselves. And so I think that's the message to students. It's going to be okay. And I think probably our uniqueness is that we spend a lot of time with the students to understand what is their skills and abilities. It's important to know what their skill and ability is, because that's what I'm going to take to the company. And that's what the company gets to meet, is that student's skill and ability, not their academics of study, not what their GPA is, but how are they going to contribute? What is the unique thing that they're going to bring to the table? So that's probably one of the other things that we do that's a little bit different out of our Mason campus.
Great. Council, we have a panel here of business owners and entrepreneurs. Do any of you have questions for Chad or Madeline about Sinclair or the opportunities for students?
Mayor, I just wanted to say thank you for this great presentation, and thank you for investing here in Mason. I think it's a brilliant move. There is absolutely a need for exactly what you're doing. I think it's a great business model for you, but look at the people there's a void there, and you guys are going to fill it. And I want to say, I think it's brilliant. Thank you.
Yeah, you mentioned Festo with all the graduating class. I forget the name of it, but I think we had technology days when we were allowed to come out and like socialize and have fun and meet and greet people. And it was fascinating to me with what high school students can go to Festo and earn, and at the same time earn college credits. And I don't know if you want to expound on that a little more, but even the numbers that these kids were learning or making was, it was phenomenal. This was 2 or 3 years ago, making the wages that they were. And not only that, but then I remember we interviewed a few of them when they were here, and being able to walk them through the Festo, lack of better terms, trailer that they had. And it was, again, I think that is exactly where we're missing. Because a lot of these students, everybody's like, hey, go to college, go to college, go to college. But in the event that they don't know what they're going to do, this is an incredible way for them to get hands-on, understanding learning, and it might even, guide them to a career path that they weren't even thinking of with this type of industry, which I think is absolutely huge. Because I have a warehouse, and it does take, it takes a skill set, and being able to actually have the industrial maintenance technology side of things is, I think, phenomenal. And, to Councilmember Hunterlaw's point, I think it's paid off hugely here. And I think if you interview Festo, I think they would echo that too. So thank you for that, and continuing. I mean, and you're putting your money where your mouth is also, being able to invest $1.2 million, that's not a small number. So thank you for that. And, again, I'd like to continue to see us have that technology day one day, hopefully, to where, what's that? Innovation Week. Innovation technology is one of those same things to me. But again, thanks again for everything you guys do. I think it's, if there was actually in one of our magazines in Centerpoint, we featured that Festo Sinclair relationship and exactly what these young men and women can do. And I thought, I think we should actually highlight that again. If you guys were able to bring that out and kind of, we could get that back out there, especially since you guys are here. So thanks again. Well done. Keep up the good work.
Mayor, if I may, and I'm quite sure working with Festo as a German company, I had the opportunity as a safety engineer for Ford Motor Company to buy some or look over some equipment from Germany and be in Germany. And they take their industrial, we'll call it industrial arts, very seriously over there. It is a career path. It's not a, oh, you weren't good enough to go to college, you're doing this. And there was one manufacturer, Grobe, up of 75. I can't think of the town. It's north of Piqua and that. But they would the kid, and I'm quite sure Festo may do something similar. They would give these kids a steel cube ball, about 3.5 to 4 inches, and they would give them a file, and they would tell them, make a ball out of that.
That is the type of technical training as far as getting them into that mindset. We want you to turn this into a ball. And I watched it, and it's like, these kids are very good at it. They know what they're doing. They're enthused. They're getting paid, and they can see a future down the road. And it's the same thing, I'm quite sure, with Festo. I don't know if Vega will have possibly similar something as coming out of the German culture in that. And Rheinstall is another one. So I think Europe, to some degree, has been ahead of us as far as, you got to have tradesmen to be able to go out and do those jobs that, what's the joke? The guy gets the plumber comes and he gives the guy a bill and says, well, I don't even make that. I'm a brain surgeon. He says, yeah, I used to be a brain surgeon too. So the bottom line is, you're giving people a skill that they can work with their hands. They can go ahead and earn a living on their own, and they can provide a good income for their family. And I'm glad to see it. I think one gentleman on cable, is it Mike Rowe? I think he has been a big advocate for this. And this is something that, yes, we need even here in Mason, Ohio. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you all. Your comments have been very affirming, and I very much appreciate them. And you've warmed my heart. I'll just share a very quick personal story. My father passed in December. He was a tool and die maker. And so I take extra special pride in being part of this movement, because it's the next, we are doing what David Sinclair did, right? 134 years ago. Now it's the next generation that we're bringing along. So thank you very much for that. Thank you for your appreciation.
Thank you all. We look forward to seeing you again soon with more good news. That was wonderful. Very nice. All right. Well, it is time for item 8 on our agenda, recognition of visitors. And we have a topic to talk about as far as just guidelines for visitors, but I think we're going to do that later during committee reports. But for now, is there anyone on council that wants to make a motion for a time limit for each guest? No motion? All right, then we will have you up. So do we have anybody in the online queue? Just curious.
We have 3 people. I just want to remind anybody in the online queue, if you wish to speak, you need to hit the little raised hand icon on your computer.
Okay, great. We have a pretty short agenda with city business following this, but so if you have a comment that can wait till the second round of recognition of visitors, that would be great. But if you don't, we'll have you up right now. And I see Mr. Inskeep, come on up, state your name and address when you arrive. And while you're walking up, I'll just make a little comment about the topic we were discussing earlier with the new, it's a trans receiver in the, help me out, transceiver. The transceiver, it is now on Mars, on the rover. And so that is, we have our local portfolio, our regional portfolio, our international business portfolio, and now our, how would you describe this? Our solar system. It's not really galactic portfolio, but we need to find a term for that. We've expanded our horizons. All right, we have our dear guest, Mr. Inskeep. Go ahead and give us your name and information for the record and tell us what's on your mind.
Rick Inskeep, Mason, Ohio. And Mr. Chance, I saw last week that you were questioned again about the recall petition. Sir, you do not have to give an explanation or a justification for your involvement. That is your right to petition the government for redress of grievances. You don't have to, like I said, give an explanation or anything else on that. Now, I want to give a little history about what has gone on recall petitions. A number of years ago, when her husband was on council, okay, he heard that me and some other people were going to circulate a recall petition. So him and the law director started a council meeting, and it went in the newspapers that anybody who was involved with this petition was going to be subject to felony charges. Now, what ended up happening was the legal director from the ACLU got involved, and he sent the law director a letter. In that letter, he said, a review of the law indicates your implicit threats are wholly without legal basis. Later in the letter, he said, if anything, by labeling the language of the draft petition as full of falsehoods, among other descriptions, you and other Mason officials might be in violation of the ORC 359914, not the petition sponsors or circulators. And if not, that section, you should certainly be wary of violating ORC 359913A5. No person shall seek by intimidation or threats to influence any person to sign or refrain from signing such petition, or from circulating or abstaining from circulating such a petition. Furthermore, whether or not either of the two aforementioned sections of the Ohio Revised Code prohibits your actions, the First Amendment certainly does. Now, if this thing keeps coming up, I was not in any way involved with this recall petition, okay? But if it was up to me personally, I would be contacting the ACLU and several other organizations, because I think they'd be very interested in what this council has been doing as far as actions related to this recall petition. Because I think you're on very thin ice with some of the things that this council has been doing with this recall petition. Now, you might not like the fact that people did this, but that is their right. And like I said, Mr. Chance, you do not have to sit here, and if they want to question you, that's their choice. But you don't have to give an explanation or a justification of why you or your wife or anybody else was involved with that petition drive, because that is your First Amendment right, which is what I tried to explain to you last council meeting, that the people in this town have the right, not just the council members, but the people in this town, if they want to circulate a petition, whether it's a recall or a referendum or initiative, that's their right. And you people have no business getting involved and doing like this report that you did where you start naming people. I think, you could be in serious trouble with this.
Thank you, Mr. Inskeep. Is there anybody else in the room that would like to speak? Mr. Inskeep, on the matter from our last meeting that you brought up, I believe our engineer, Kurt Seiler, has been trying to follow up with you, and I think he left you a message. He did. Okay. All right. Just so you know. Thank you. All right. We have somebody in our online queue. Can we go ahead with that? Oh, nobody's hands are raised? Okay. All right. Let's move on then to item 9, which is ordinance 2021-29. I need a motion to read that by title only.
Second.
All in favor?
Yes.
Any opposed? Jeff?
Authorizing the city manager to execute an amendment to right of first negotiation agreement with Betty Jane Westerkamp.
Eric, whenever you're ready.
Okay.
Sorry.
Thank you, Mayor. This is actually a very simple ordinance. It corrects a oversight that is about 23 years old now. But it's more probably an opportunity to express some gratitude to Mrs. Westerkamp, who is our neighbor to the north here, and also sold the city several years ago the property that the municipal campus is on, both the high school, this building, the community center, what has really become a heart of the city for civic activities. What that oversight was, as part of that purchase agreement many years ago, the city was granted the first right of negotiation for the remaining acreage to the north here that is a field now. But what was inadvertently left out of that was a small 0.75 acre parcel that was located adjacent to the Pine Hill Lodge along Kings Mills Road. When that oversight was identified, it also dovetailed with some other needs. Mrs. Westercam was in need of removing an aged barn on her property. The city, I have gratitude for our long relationship and in order to be neighborly as well, located someone we had worked with before that was able to take the barn down at no cost to Mrs. Westercam and the city. And then because of our interest in that first drive negotiation on the property, we did work to, in conjunction with demolition of some other city buildings, to assist with the final removal of the foundation and the remediation of the property there. With that completed, Mrs. Westercam is now ready to amend that original first drive negotiation agreement, allowing the city to consolidate all of the property on that strategic piece and key to the overall development of both the community as well as the municipal campus here. Ordinance 2129 authorizes that amendment to include that final parcel in that right of first negotiation. It is recommended for adoption.
Thank you. We need a motion to suspend the rule and allow for adoption after the first reading.
So moved.
All in favor?
Yes.
Any opposed? We need a motion to adopt, please.
So moved.
Any council discussion?
Mayor.
Yes.
So I just want to add that I'm no relation to Betty Westercam, but I've known her all my life. She's like an aunt to me. I lived across the street from her. I'm also a tenant there and mow her grass, so I'll be abstaining for those reasons.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right. We certainly appreciate Mrs. Westercam. All right. We need to call the roll.
Councilmember Nelson,
Yes.
Councilmember Bradburn,
Yes.
Councilmember Stricula,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Gilb. Yes. Councilmember Hunterlaw,
Abstain.
Mayor Grossman,
Yes.
Councilmember Chance.
Yes.
Item 10 on the agenda, ordinance 2021-30. We need a motion to read that by title only, please.
So moved.
Jeff. Oh, all in favor. I'm sorry.
Yes.
Any opposed? Jeff.
Authorizing the city manager to enter into a contract with ABC Signs for labor and materials necessary for improvements to the State Route 741 overpass signage in an amount not to exceed $60,000.
Kurt, could you tell us how Councilmember Chance's dreams are all about to come true?
Again,
Not only mine, but my wife's. Extremely happy to see this.
yes, we refer to this as the decorative fence. This is on the overpass, the 741 overpass that goes over I-71. That original signage was put in with the bicentennial in 2015. And the main complication with it at night especially is trying to meet ODOT's criteria of not having any lighting sticking out over the highway that would potentially distract drivers. And so the original design, the designer had it so that it would kind of wash the lettering with lighting, and we could only do it from one end of the lettering. So obviously it doesn't work very well. This new solution that's being proposed before you tonight is to have halo lit lettering, which will be a new kind of two-piece signage where the letters will have lights inside of them, and then there'll be a flat plate behind the letters. When the light shines, it'll light up that back plate and give a halo effect around all of the letters on it. So if you've been by the service center at night or the new overpass at where I-71 goes over Western Road, where the lettering is there, that's kind of that halo effect that this new lettering would propose. The proposal does include some traffic control because we have to close lanes on I-71 below while this work is taking place. And ODOT did approve the design that ABC Signs came up with. One stipulation was that there be a dimmer added to it in case the lighting level is too bright, just because this type of lighting and where the distance is from this overpass down to the highway is very hard to model. And so they just wanted to add a dimmer in case it needs to be turned down. So with that, ordinance 2021-30 is recommended for adoption, and it's for a not to exceed amount of $60,000.
Thank you. We need a motion to suspend the rule and allow for adoption after the first reading.
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Yes.
Any opposed? Motion to adopt.
So moved.
Second.
Any council discussion?
Yeah, Mayor.
Yes.
It's funny, some of the items that people bring to your attention when you're on council. And we kind of joke like, this is my dream, or, and I did mention my wife's dream, but every time we pass by there, because we have friends that live in Lebanon, she mentions it every single time. But I'm telling you, there was probably 21 other people that have brought this to my attention. And then we did the new one, the new underpass, and they're like, why can't we do it like that? And so thank you to Councilmember Bradburn to picking this thing up with me in committee and seeing that we can at least get this to where it's visual. And I think aesthetically, it's going to look just like our other one. And so thanks, Kurt and team, to get with ODOT. I know that's always a challenge, especially when we're on a highway and we're having to figure out traffic patterns and when we can do it and all that good stuff. But I view that as kind of an entry point to the city now. That's where a lot of people are coming in for the tennis tournament, and especially coming in with 741. A lot of people will be getting off there for the industry that's being built up out there. So I think it'll be a much better improvement, or much better aesthetically. So thank you for that.
Anyone else? I agree with you. It's going to look great. All right, let's call the roll.
Councilmember Bradburn,
Yes.
Councilmember Stricula,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Gilb, Councilmember Hunterlaw,
Yes.
Mayor Grossman,
Yes.
Councilmember Chance,
Yes.
Councilmember Nelson.
Yes. Item 11 on the agenda is ordinance 2021-31. We need a motion to read that by title only, please.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Yes.
Any opposed? Jeff?
Authorizing the city manager to enter into a contract with Sunesis Construction Company for the State Route 741 widening project from Spyglass Hill to Weldon Drive in the amount of $10,887,088.
Kurt?
Yes, thank you, Mayor and Council. This project will widen 741, as Jeff said, from Spyglass Hill, which is located just south of US 42, to Weldon Drive, which is north of Bethany Road. So it'll include improvements at both the Bethany Road and the US 42 intersection with new signals. There'll be 2 lanes in both directions with turn lanes, bike path, sidewalk. We do have to widen the existing bridge there over Muddy Creek. And the improvements at Bethany Road also include the railroad crossing at Bethany and at 741. So both railroad crossings, and some bike path connections from Windermere Way across the 741 intersection. So it'll be a substantial improvement, probably one of the largest capital improvement projects that we've taken on outside of maybe the treatment plant or the interchange itself. This project, we had 8 bidders. The lowest bidder withdrew their bid within 48 hours due to some omissions of substantial quantities of work. They were $800,000 lower than the next bidder. And after discussing that with both ODOT and legal counsel, there's really nothing that we could do, and they were within their rights to withdraw their bid. The lowest and best bidder then is Census Construction. We have done a couple projects with Census in the past. In fact, Mason Montgomery Road outside this building was done by Census from Tylersville up to 42. And they also did the Socialville Foster widening project for us from Mason Montgomery Road to our East Corp. The budget this year had $11 million for construction of this project. Census's bid came out $10.8 million. And we expect to start construction yet this year within the next few months and be done probably fall of 22. We think it's going to take 2 construction seasons. There's a substantial amount of water main replacement work. A lot of the water main, there's a 12-inch main along 741 is an old transite pipe that's going to be replaced in cooperation with Waterworks, as well as the railroad work, the signal work, and just the large size of the project. We'll know in the future once we get the actual schedule from the contractor if they can get it done sooner, but we think it's going to be 2 construction seasons. So with that, ordinance 2021. Oh, and I didn't mention we did receive federal funding in two different grants for $6.6 million towards the project and another $800,000 in OPWC grants. So a little over $7.4 million of the project will be covered by state and federal grants. And in addition, Waterworks will be paying for half of the water main work, which is about $1.2 million of the project. So with that, ordinance 2021-31, awarding the contract to census construction is recommended, and I'll answer any questions that you have.
We need a motion to suspend the rule and allow for adoption after the first reading.
So
moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Sorry, I didn't hear. All in favor?
Yes.
Any opposed? Motion to adopt?
If I may,
Yes.
I have a question to the engineer. If I vote for this, are the railroad crossing signals going to work properly?
And I hope so. They can't get any worse.
Motion to adopt?
So moved.
Okay, now it's time for council discussion. Any questions for Kurt? I think this is great timing. Well, I mean, this has taken a long time. It's been 4 years, plus now we're thinking 2 construction seasons, but with the new hospital coming in and with all of the development at the Research and Development Park, this is much needed, and it's going to look so much better with our new lights on the bridge, and it's really going to set us apart. So that's great news. Anybody else? Let's call the roll, please.
Councilmember Stricula,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Gilb.
Yes.
Councilmember Hunterlaw,
Yes.
Mayor Grossman,
Yes.
Councilmember Chance,
Yes.
Councilmember Nelson,
Yes.
Councilmember Bradburn.
Yes.
Item 12 on the agenda is ordinance 2021-32. We need a motion to read by title only.
Moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Yes.
Any opposed? Jeff?
Authorizing the city manager to enter into a contract with A&A Safety, Inc. in the amount of $100,000 for the 2021 street striping program.
Kurt?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. This is our annual street striping program where we retrace any of the pavement markings and replace as needed any raised pavement markers in the pavement. Our budget was in the 2021 budget. There was $100,000 for this program. The 2 bidders that we got, A&A Safety and Aeromark, you can see are just over $100,000. What staff is recommending is just awarding it for the $100,000. Our estimated quantities tend to be a little bit high depending on how many raised pavement markers we need to replace and things like edge line and different items that we could eliminate from the project to reduce that amount down to $100,000. So with that, A&A Safety did have our 2019 program and met our performance criteria for that. And we would recommend moving forward with ordinance 2021-32 in the amount of $100,000.
Thank you. We need a motion to suspend the rule and allow for adoption after the first reading.
Second.
All in favor?
Yes.
Any opposed? Need a motion to adopt, please?
So moved.
Any council discussion? Let's call the roll, please.
Vice Mayor Gilb,
Yes.
Councilmember Hunterlaw,
Yes.
Mayor Grossman,
Yes.
Councilmember Chance,
Yes.
Councilmember Nelson,
Yes.
Councilmember Bradburn,
Yes.
Councilmember Stricula.
Yes.
Item 13 is ordinance 2021-33. We need a motion to read by title only.
So moved.
All in favor? Any opposed? Jeff?
Authorizing the city manager to enter into a contract with Jackson Construction, Inc. in the amount of $100,000 for the 2021 sidewalk replacement program.
Kurt?
Yes, thank you, Mayor and Council. We requested bids from 4 contractors for concrete work, which included the annual sidewalk program. And then I'd like to also touch on ordinance 2021-34, which is a contract for concrete work at the Safety Service Center Annex. And both of these received, we kind of thought by packaging it together, we'd get one good bid on both. And we actually ended up with good bids on 2 separate contractors. So we're recommending moving forward with ordinance 2021-33 with Jackson Construction. This is to continue on our sidewalk replacement program in the amount of $100,000. We had budgeted $110,000, and that would leave $10,000 for in-house staff where we can do spot treatment of areas that are less efficient than we could get with a contractor's price. The Safety Service Center Annex work is to replace the apron out there and widen the apron. That's where a lot of the heavy vehicles from our street sweeper and fire vehicles that go in there to train ambulances. And so that there's a lot of crumbling concrete out there. In addition, we're going to have a dumpster enclosure built out there to have a little bit of a neater storage area for that type of work and bulk storage out at the service center annex. We estimated in the 2021 budget included $220,000 for those improvements. RE Middleton gave us the lowest and best price of $136,000 for that concrete work. And that includes everything but the dumpster enclosure. The brickwork itself will be a separate contract in the future. So with that, ordinance 2021-33, a contract for Jackson, and ordinance 2021-34, contract with RE Middleton are both recommended for adoption, and I'll answer any questions that you have.
We need a motion to suspend the rule and allow for adoption after the first reading.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Any opposed? We need a motion to adopt.
Second.
Any council discussion?
Mayor?
Yes.
So we had talked about before, I had brought up the fact that Mason Montgomery and 42 over on that the east side where Adesso Coffee is, Mason Grill, Common Beer, the sidewalks are very bad over there. And there's a lot of people walking in the nighttime to go from these businesses to the Mason parking lot that's way behind. And I've always had a concern, one with the lighting as well as the sidewalks being in poor condition. And we did bring it up, and the downtown committee did take a look at it. And I just wanted, if you could talk about why that area is not, those sidewalks are not being done. It has to do with the Duke Energy, I believe. We're waiting for them to do something before we can repair the sidewalks.
To help me out on this, what we determined the sidewalks, and it's difficult there to distinguish, maybe difficult there to distinguish the sidewalk from the parking lot, but the sidewalks are actually in fairly good shape. Because there's no green space around there, you know, it's the paving, it may not be apparent. The curb next to the roadway, that has some difficult patches and actually Kurt and I were discussing this earlier today. The difficulty there is to replace that curb you do when you're doing a resurfacing of the roadway, to do those in conjunction. Otherwise, you're tearing up the roadway and not having effective change. So I think when you say sidewalks, what most people are visualizing is actually the curb from the roadway up to the pavement. And the difficulty with that, I don't know, Duke, if we were to rebuild the sidewalk or if you were to do underground utilities, that's where, you know, the sequencing there may be important. But the curb, I think, is what you're probably most concerned with.
So I thought we were waiting on it because Duke, we didn't want to spend the money to fix it if Duke was going to come in and have to do something and dig it back up.
We did discuss that in committee, and Tony has reminded me of this, but it's something with the utilities. If we were going to bury the utilities simultaneously, we would have to, there's a lot of work involved in that. It's very costly, obviously, but I think that's where the catch is, right? If we are going to bury the utilities, it's kind of where, instead of just doing the sidewalks, it's going to be a more comprehensive program, project, whatever you want to call it, to where we'd actually have to bury utilities and then have to do the sidewalks simultaneously. So I think it's not as simple as just doing the sidewalks because of the curb cuts and all that good stuff. I think it's a little trickier on the east side than on the west side. But Tony, do you remember or
I think
add anything to?
Yeah, as I recall, to replace the curb, the curb I don't know what to say. The edge of the curb has been paved over. So if you go ahead and try to replace the curb, you're ripping out the pavement right along the edge. So it becomes expensive, cumbersome, and it'd be a mess. The other part is if you're in the future going to go ahead and do underground utilities, to go ahead and put lighting that's on the other side of Mason Montgomery, it needs to be a coordinated effort in regards to that. Ashley, you agree with that kind of assessment from both?
And I do, and I agree with you also, Councilmember Nelson, that we need to address that, right? It's almost like you cross over and it's, I think we need to address that. And I think that's probably I think we've had some discussions on the downtown. I think it's also looking at what we could do there in order to mimic one side and the other to where they look like they're related opposed to they're a little congruent, right? So I would suggest that we at least start looking at that and maybe revisit that, because I think there is, it is a little dicey there walking. I mean, my office is right on Main Street. And if you ever try to cross the road, and if you ever do, the lighting in and of itself is something that needs to be addressed if you're walking down the corridor to that back parking lot. So, but I think we could probably pick that up in committee, but I think it does definitely need to be addressed.
So I just wanted to bring that to everyone's attention, because I know that's been brought up a lot, and we're not ignoring this part of Main Street. There's just a reason why it hasn't been done, and I just kind of wanted to point that out so everyone knows. And I agree with you with the lighting. We have a downtown committee this Thursday, so we will address the lighting again.
Mayor, to Kurt, I seem to remember a ballpark figure of, was it $1 million to put underground lighting in there? Underground utilities for the lighting, if we were to go ahead and change?
Yeah, looking at the costs, what it costs on the portion of Main Street that's already been buried. Yeah, that's right, in the ballpark. It is about $1 million per block in that area. So, yeah.
Okay, anybody else about the ordinance, which is about the contract? But we certainly do need to pick up these dialogues, and we haven't forgotten about you, East Main. I personally want to be aggressive with roadway improvements in the downtown area, and so I mean I'm all for it, and making some serious improvements on that end of town. Anybody else about the ordinance with the contract? All right, great. Let's go ahead and call the roll, please.
Councilmember Hunterlaw,
Yes.
Mayor Grossman,
Yes.
Councilmember Chance,
Yes.
Councilmember Nelson,
Yes.
Councilmember Bradburn,
Yes.
Councilmember Stricula,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Gilb.
Got him. Okay. All right. Ordinance 2021-34. That's item 14 on the agenda. We need a motion to read that by title only, please.
So moved.
All in favor?
Yes.
Any opposed? Thank you. Jeff?
Authorizing the city manager to enter into a contract with RE Middleton Construction, Inc. in the amount of $136,000 to install concrete for the entrance, storage, loading area, and the dumpster enclosure area at the Safety Service Center Annex.
Thank you. Motion to suspend the rule and allow for adoption after the first reading.
So moved.
All in favor? Any opposed? All right. We need a motion to adopt.
So moved. Second.
All right. Any council discussion on this ordinance? Let's call the roll, please.
Mayor Grossman,
Yes.
Councilmember Chance,
Yes.
Councilmember Nelson,
Yes.
Councilmember Bradburn,
Yes.
Councilmember Stricula,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Gilb.
Yes.
Councilmember Hunterlaw.
Yes.
Item 15 on the agenda, ordinance 2021-35. We need a motion to read by title only.
So moved.
All in favor?
Yes.
Any opposed? Jeff?
Authorizing the city manager to enter into a contract with Pensura LLC for labor and associated materials for installation of playground equipment for Pine Hill Park in an amount not to exceed $60,000.
Jennifer has some exciting news.
Mayor and members of council, if you don't mind, I'm going to address the next three pieces of legislation. Pine Hill Playground is likely the most popular playground in Mason's Park system. It was originally constructed in 1999. It was replaced in 2003. That replacement is now 17 years old, and the situation out there has become unsafe. If we don't replace that playground, it's likely that we would have to remove it altogether. Council took first action towards its replacement late in 2020 when it approved ordinance 2020-100, which was for the purchase of new equipment for the playground. Additional items that are before you this evening include installation of the equipment, synthetic turf, as well as fencing. The contract for installation is needed to ensure safety regulations are met for the playground equipment. Pentura is familiar with the installation process as they have performed the work at McKeno Park Common Ground Playground. Synthetic turf is being recommended to replace the rubber surface material. Synthetic turf, again, was used at the Common Ground Playground, so we have a lot more experience with it. The product has a longer lifespan and it requires less overall maintenance than the rubberized surface material. Forever Lawn of Ohio provided a quote for synthetic turf in the amount of $138,500. This is less than the state purchasing program cost for this project. With the limited opening of McKeno Park, the city has already received numerous compliments about the park. Some of the things we have learned from that, elements of it, we hope to include in the development as well as redevelopment of playgrounds throughout the city of Mason's Park system. This includes the addition of individual pieces of an all-inclusive playground equipment, which we do have planned for the Pine Hill playground improvements. Fencing surrounding McKeno Park is very popular for families. It creates a safer environment for parents with less points of entry, as well as less ability for children to wander away. The Pine Hill Playground is in close proximity to lakes, and a fence will create an increased sense of safety for visitors. The 2021 budget includes $315,000 for this project. In addition to the legislation before you this evening, there will be a need for additional landscape work, trash receptacles, as well as benches. With that, staff are recommending ordinance 2021-35 through 37 for adoption. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer for you.
Thank you. We need a motion to suspend the rule and allow for adoption after the first reading.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Opposed? We need a motion to adopt.
So moved.
Any council discussion? All right, let's call the roll.
Councilmember Chance,
Yes.
Councilmember Nelson,
Yes.
Councilmember Bradburn,
Yes.
Councilmember Stricula,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Gilb,
Yes.
Councilmember Hunterlaw,
Yes.
Mayor Grossman.
Yes. Item 16 is ordinance 2021-36. We need a motion to read by title only.
So moved.
All in favor?
Yes.
Any opposed? Jeff?
Authorizing the city manager to enter into a contract with Forever Lawn of Ohio, Inc. for the purchase and installation of playground synthetic turf and associated materials for Pine Hill Park Playground replacement in the total amount not to exceed $138,500.
We need a motion to suspend the rule and allow for adoption after the first reading.
So moved.
All in favor? Any opposed? Motion to adopt.
So moved.
Any council discussion? Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Nelson,
Yes.
Councilmember Bradburn,
Yes.
Councilmember Stricula,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Gilb,
Yes.
Councilmember Hunterlaw,
Yes.
Mayor Grossman,
Yes.
Councilmember Chance.
Yes.
Item 17 is ordinance 2021-37. We need a motion to read by title only.
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Yes.
Any opposed? Jeff?
Authorizing the city manager to enter into a contract with Ashley Fence Enterprises, Inc. for the purchase and installation of fencing for Pine Hill Park Playground replacement in the total amount not to exceed $40,800.
We need a motion to suspend the rule and allow for adoption after the first reading.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Any opposed? We need a motion to adopt.
So moved.
Second.
Any council discussion? Okay, I think this is the best news of all, the fence. Back in the day, we had to take our kids to the park with no fence, but this is going to be great for moms and dads at Pine Hill Park to keep those kids corralled. All right, let's call the roll, please.
Councilmember Bradburn,
Yes.
Councilmember Stricula,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Gilb,
Yes.
Councilmember Hunterlaw,
Yes.
Mayor Grossman,
Yes.
Councilmember Chance,
Yes.
Councilmember Nelson.
Yes.
Item 18, ordinance 2021-38. Motion to read by title only, please.
So moved?
All in favor?
Yes.
Any opposed? Sorry, I have to ask that every time. Jeff?
Authorizing the city manager to enter into an agreement with Game Changers Consulting for services related to the Mason Municipal Aquatic Center in an amount not to exceed $54,000 for the first year.
Jennifer?
Mayor, members of council, with the completion of the 50-meter pool this fall, the city will add another significant community amenity to our already high-profile repertoire of recreational opportunities in Mason. What is unique is Mason's commitment to developing long-term, financially sustainable recreational assets. This often relies on strategic analysis and planning, as well as developing and securing creative partnerships and advocates. The Mason Community Center continues to serve as the city's role model for this culture of recreational programming and our mission of building a culture of wellness in Mason community. With the addition of the 50-meter pool and 11 current as well as former Mason Manta Ray athletes slated to compete for the 2021 Olympics, Mason has elevated its presence in the recreational programming arena and now is the time to develop a cohesive but aggressive marketing, promotional, development, and operational strategy for all of our recreational amenities and events, including the community center, the golf center, McKenna Park, the sports park, tennis, as well as Red Rhythm Boom and others. Our strategy needs to continue to include uniting our partners such as the Warren County Convention and Visitors Bureau, Mason Parks Foundation, A Matter of 50 Meters, as well as tennis, and aligning missions towards creating a plan for Mason to continue to remain the anchor for event and tourism in the county, state, and the region. Game Changers Consulting has the credentials, experience, and knowledge to assist the city in navigating the waters surrounding recreational sports marketing, programming, as well as operations. Dale Newberger has served for 28 years as a member of the USA Swimming Board of Directors, including 2 terms as president. He has also served as the chairman of the Board of International Swimming Hall of Fame and vice president of the International Aquatics Federation. Michelle Perry has 30 years of experience with major event management, organizational bidding processes, facility management, and strategic business development. She has spent over 12 years at the NCAA overseeing the NCAA Women's Final Four event. Game Changers has also experience representing high-profile athletes such as Peyton Manning, Michael Phelps, and Colin Jones. Game Changers Consulting holds a breadth of experience and knowledge that will assist Mason as we transition to new heights of programming opportunities, furthering the quality of life for our residents. This ordinance provides up to 5 years of consulting services. The first year includes work related to a SWOT analysis, marketing assessments, best practices, event attraction, financial assessments, operation and management requirements, marketing and communication, as well as facility collaboration. This will set us on the right path for a self-sustaining asset. The city then has the option to renew annually for up to 4 additional years for ongoing targeted work and analysis at the Aquatic Center as it more fully develops and evolves. The Wellness Committee has reviewed this contract and is recommending ordinance 2021-38 for adoption. Thank you.
Thank you. We need a motion to suspend the rule and allow for adoption after the first reading.
So moved.
All in favor?
Yes.
Any opposed? We need a motion to adopt.
So moved. Second.
Any council discussion on this one? All right, let's call the roll.
Councilmember Stricula,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Gilb,
Yes.
Councilmember Hunterlaw,
Yes.
Mayor Grossman,
Yes.
Councilmember Chance,
Yes.
Councilmember Nelson,
Yes.
Councilmember Bradburn.
Yes.
Item 19 is ordinance 2021-39. We need a motion to read by title only.
So moved.
All in favor?
Yes.
Any opposed? Jeff?
Authorizing the city manager to enter into a contract with Vogel Pole Fire Equipment for the purchase of 1 decontamination washer for the City of Mason Fire Department.
Eric?
Thank you, Mayor. I was just thinking it's interesting, one of the departments that's responsible for safety in the community is also one probably exposed to more hazards than most other departments with the fire department. And that's what this ordinance is intended to help address. The city has a long history of taking this seriously in the fire department. Just a couple examples here. Diesel exhaust removal and ventilation systems are in each of the fire stations. There's specialized commercial washing machines and drying systems for their protective gear. Each firefighter has 2 sets of personal protective equipment. We go through decontamination of equipment on scenes as well as in the stations. But one thing that has been difficult for the firefighters and currently can only be done by hand is cleaning some of their fire gear like helmets and boots, and the SCBA, the breathing apparatus that they use, is both time consuming as well as just difficult to actually thoroughly clean all the details of that equipment. That's been something that we've dealt with recently though, and we've been researching this. A commercial machine came onto the market that provides significant assistance to those tasks. It's called the Solo Rescue Decontamination Washer. That was recently developed in Sweden and has found success. It's equipped with a specialized design that allows for tight and hard to reach places on the equipment to be decontaminated in ways that just can't be done by hand by the firefighters. I mentioned this has been researched begin in 2020, and to our knowledge, Mason would be the first community in the region to purchase and implement this, but we have found that other departments throughout the country have found success with it. $30,000 was included in the 2021 budget for this purchase, and after reviewing multiple quotes, found the lowest and best price of $24,000 for the machine. I just want to emphasize this is just one other aspect, but a significant one for the fire department. It's a dirty job that firefighters go through, especially when they have to work a working fire. And this will be a significant improvement to that, not just for their ease though, but significantly for the safety. Cleaning the equipment, if not done carefully and precisely, exposes the firefighters to different hazards. And this is a small investment to make to mitigate those risks.
Thank you. We need a motion to suspend the rule and allow for adoption after the first reading.
So moved?
Second.
All in favor?
Yes.
Any opposed? Motion to adopt?
So moved.
Any council discussion?
Mayor?
Yes.
I just want to say I'm a huge supporter of our first responders. I have always fully funded them and I will always fully fund them. I was really happy when I read that we are getting this decontamination washer. Like Eric said, you know, they really do, if they don't clean their tools properly, it exposes them to cancer. So this is one step that Mason's making to help safeguard our first responders from cancer. But I have a question on it, being that we're only purchasing one. How is that going to work? After a fire, are they going to go to that one station and have their equipment cleaned, or are we planning on purchasing more for each of the stations in the future?
I don't know logistically how they'll be able to handle it by after each fire, making sure that equipment is cleaned at a specific fire station. I suppose if it does work well, and if we find those type of efficiencies, we would be looking at purchasing another one.
I know you don't work in this department, but how long does it take for them to clean everything after a fire? How much time is it saving?
I couldn't give you a number. It depends. After a fire, you know, and fortunately they don't deal with the fire every day, but depending on the severity and the number of exposure, I'd say there's a couple hours anyhow to go through the equipment. And keep in mind, to clean the equipment thoroughly, I guess for you to do a thorough job, it could be all day, but they're just not able to do that.
Well, this is great. I'm excited. I'm excited again that Mason is the leader in this. We're the only one in the region purchasing this piece of equipment. So it's great. I love how we support our first responders.
Anyone else? All right, let's call the roll, please.
Vice Mayor Gilb?
Yes.
Councilmember Hunterlaw? Mayor Grossman?
Yes.
Councilmember Chance?
Yes.
Councilmember Nelson?
Yes.
Councilmember Bradburn?
Yes.
Councilmember Stricula?
Yes.
Thank you. Item 20 on the agenda is old and new business. We did not put committee reports on the agenda, so if it's okay with council, let's start with committee reports in the old and new. Councilmember Bradburn, would you kick us off with your wellness report?
Wellness committee met. We have
again, I don't know if you want to call it preliminary presentation for Center Point publication that will be coming out in March, as I recall. Shake your heads, right? So I can make sure Alzheimer's has.
Touch on it better than I can, but all families in the Mason Deerfield Township area, also all members of the community center.
Councilmember Bradburn, can you turn on your microphone?
Thank you. Okay, sorry. Red Rhythm and Boom. It's included in your packet. Some discussions that was held. I'll probably ask the city manager if he wants to hop in here. There's hesitancy to hold Red Rhythm and Boom in July. One of the problems we heard from our city manager in the committee report was you're not getting the acts to commit. They're basically not, if there's an issue, they could sign a contract with us and do I want to say take the money and run?
There are a few performers willing to commit. Those performers that have indicated they might be willing to commit, their actual commitment to actually perform on the date is contingent on their perception of how safe the environment is, including pandemic-related issues. What that means is you have significant expense for the staging, the audiovisual, even the deposit for the bands that could be at risk if someone determines that they don't feel appropriately safely handled in that situation. So there was a significant risk, as Councilmember Bradburn indicated, to making any type of financial investment at this point in time. It's also true most of the the agents that we're in contact with have indicated that they had serious doubts that event would be able to happen in July. Most of their planning timelines now seem to be in the fall.
And there was also another issue is at the same time we would be holding the Red Rhythm of Boom, the schools are paving their parking lots around the high school. That was an issue. And then the city manager also reported out to us that neighboring communities, I'll leave it at that, I don't want to put any names out there, neighboring communities that have had big events apparently have not even begun the process to go ahead and have an event. They feel that it's a slippery slope in regards with the acts. So the bottom line is there's some things, there's some, I'm going to call them options. We're bringing back to council that we could do, have a fireworks display, have a downtown plaza event on July 3rd, something smaller, and then maybe hosting something, a larger event in September. If the COVID-19 situation improves, we would have greater flexibility. The municipal center at that time, parking lots would be finished. So just kind of throwing it out to council. Here's what we heard. I'm open to input.
Mayor? When I read this in our packet, and I was really disappointed because I don't feel like this should have ever come to a committee. And if it did come to a committee, it should have come to the events committee, not the wellness committee. I really feel like this should have been a work session where all council members got to put their input in to see what we're going to do. I would like to have a work session. I don't want this to be a final yet because I think it's important to have a work session and to have everybody collaborate on how we can do this. I think it's important to have, some kind of activity, fireworks and all that. I just, I would prefer to be part of the conversation and have everybody be part of the conversation. I'd also like to find out when we're going to call an events committee. We've been in existence for a year and a half and you haven't called one committee meeting yet. So it might be good to do that.
Well, we are definitely hurting for a work session, and we had difficulty scheduling things last week. So we consolidated and tackled the preliminary discussions about Red Rhythm and Boom in the Wellness Committee, but there is no reason why we can't have an events committee about it. But that is certainly a topic that we wanted to discuss in a work session. We just ended up not having one last week. But yes, we are going to schedule another work session. That's something I'd like to talk about tonight, getting that going. And absolutely, we want all of council's input on that. It's not a problem at all. And then once we have a better sense of direction, the events committee can get together and work on details. I will say that we also learned that Dan has gone ahead and scheduled acts for Friday Plaza events. So that'll give us some things to talk about too as a committee. I don't know if Tony remembered that. Is there anything else, Tony?
Yeah, I think, obviously we're all waiting to get past this health issue we got going on. People want to get out, they want to socialize. And it's in flux. That's all I can say. It's just not, this was not any attempt to say this is what we're going to do. This is just kind of some guidelines. We can just obviously discuss it, and it should be discussed in a work session. And I think that one of the big hangups was the parking lot pavement with the schools, and that was, as I recall, that had been addressed back, and it's like that's non-changeable. They got to go ahead and pave the parking lots, is what we were told. So that kind of really, if you're going to have the event here at the municipal center like that big, you really got to find parking off site, a lot of transportation and buses and so on and so forth. So, work session, we'll go through it, and but also the fact of the acts are just, they're not ready to commit, is what we're hearing. And that presents, I can't dance on the stage. Maybe, I'm not ready to do that. But
Kurt's creative side can come out again. I think that'd be fun.
no.
Yeah. We were really
I'll be looking
disappointed
forward.
to get the news about the paving. And then, even if the paving miraculously was done on time, the fumes would be so bad because it'd be so fresh, even if we could do it on July 3rd. So we don't want to give up. So we're going to be busy on the events committee, I hope. I really, really want to see that come together. It just may be at the Heritage Festival date instead, but I hope we can do it. Anything else on that topic? Nope. Okay. The other committee meeting we had that same day was policy and legislation, and we covered a variety of things. And I'm going to tell you just a few things, and then I'm going to toss it to Jeff because we talked about something new, and I know he can explain it a lot better. A topic that came up, let's see. Whoops. Sorry, wrong notes. Topic came up about rules, and we had a handout given to us with some guidelines for rules, and we were given an opinion that's confidential, but from our law director, about setting guidelines for council meetings and audience participation. And so we can talk about that at the end, but that would require a motion to take it off the table. But the committee does have some recommendations on that. I asked a question about if we wanted to have another go at a charter amendment. What is the time frame for that? And we have to accomplish that between 90 and 60 days prior to the election, correct? 120. 120. I'm sorry, 120. You got me. Okay, 120 to 60 days prior to the election. That has to be filed with the Board of Elections. And the committee did recommend codifying the council rules, backtracking a little bit, so that they're just automatic and we don't have to keep asking for a motion if we want to set any rules. It's awkward. So it'd be nice to have that in place if we can. And that's about it. The other thing we talked about was at the request of Councilmember Chance, we talked about an opportunity to develop PACE funding in Mason. And so I'm going to give this to Jeff and allow him to describe what PACE funding is and the conclusions we came to in our meeting.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll start by saying I'm certainly not the city's expert on PACE financing. You have bond counsel that when or if you ever got to that point would be your primary contact. But I think I can at least give you an overview of what that is. Essentially, it's a tool that's available to allow property owners to make private improvements to their property that fall under an umbrella of certain types of energy improvements. And it allows them to, it's a financing tool essentially for private property and private improvements. It would allow them to make those improvements and then be able to finance it through an assessment process. An assessment is something that cities and villages have already had the authority to do, but generally that's been limited to public improvements. Things like we've heard about an assessment to extend a sewer line, to a new subdivision. And we have a statute in Ohio that governs how that assessment process works. When the concept of PACE financing, this is all over the country, when it came to Ohio, essentially what happened was they took the concept and they sort of, I'll call it, sort of shoehorned it into the existing public improvement assessment statute, even though this is not for public improvements, it's for private improvements. The way they did that, it creates some confusion and some inconsistencies in the statute about how you would go about doing that. But what it boils down to is private improvements for qualified energy improvements that would then get financed through an assessment process. The city or village or a township has to be involved in that because those are the entities that have the assessment authority. But there is also another entity that has to be involved that's called an Energy Special Improvement District, or what is almost always called an ESID. As it stands now, the city of Mason does not have an ESID. One has never been created. An ESID essentially creates a brand new public body. It's like a nonprofit public political subdivision, has its own board, its own independent board. So that's a necessary component to proceeding with any kind of PACE financed improvements. There has to be an ESID in place. Let me back up. What I should have said when I was talking about the sort of confusing and inconsistencies within the existing state law, I should point out there have been efforts across the board, and even some state agencies are working on it to get new bills introduced to clean up the state law, to make some improvements to the state law, to clarify how it would work, to clarify the types of authority and how it would proceed. But right now, we don't have those yet. Those bills haven't gotten through to the way we would hope, so we have to proceed under the existing statute. So that's sort of PACE in a 30,000 foot review. Did you want me to speak at all about the specifics of the project?
You could. To start the ESID,
Oh.
start the ESID, you have to do
Sure.
something spectacular.
To create an ESID, the statute talks about how you do that, and it talks about the 5-member board that is there when it's initially created. And it depends what body is, whether it's a city or a municipality or a township that creates the board. They both have the authority to establish these, but the board is made up of 5 members initially. And the statute is very specific about where those board members come from or who gets to appoint certain board members. And one of the issues is that the statute says 3 of the board members have to be members of the ESID, and to be a member of the ESID, you have to have a project. You have to be one of the projects to make an improvement. What that essentially means is to create an ESID properly, you have to have at least 3 projects, 3 qualifying energy products ready to go. And because that way, those could be 3 board members. If it's done with the city, one of the board, a 4th board member is appointed, I believe, by council. And then the 5th board member is the executive, the chief executive from that municipality. And it's slightly different in the statute for townships, but the component that at least 3 of them have to be owners with or projects within the ESID is pretty clear. So that's what makes creating an ESID, I don't want to say difficult, but the timing is crucial when you want to create an ESID, because you have to have 3 projects simultaneously ready to go so that those projects can be members and can be on the initial board. Helpful?
Very helpful. So we also found it was extremely complex. If you make a mistake, you could be on the hook or the debt may not get paid properly. And it also isn't really much of a money saver for the borrower. By the time they pay all the fees and administration costs and interest, they'd probably be better off going a different route. But it is a way for companies to restructure debt so that how do I explain that properly? Help me with that one. That is one advantage, I guess.
It can be a tool for a property owner who has an improvement project to undertake. It can be a tool for them as a financing tool. The way it was described by your bond counsel is that, a company could just go to a bank, get a loan, a traditional loan to make these improvements, but that type of debt, and I don't pretend to be a tax expert for private property owners or businesses, but if you incur that type of debt, it shows up as a certain type of liability. If you incur the debt through this assessment process, through the PACE program, it doesn't show up as that type of debt on their books. It shows up more as because the assessment comes through on your property taxes, it shows up more as a property tax. It shows up more on their property tax side of things, not a debt, not a traditional loan or debt type of thing. So that is a benefit to a property owner, typically.
Thanks. So our conclusion we drew is that it was not the right time, but we weren't ruling it out, but not right now. But go ahead
Yes,
and ask
I'd
any
like-
question you want.
I would love to dive in this a little bit. Yes, I have a company called Eco Development. We do a lot of energy projects throughout the country. I have never used PACE once, so just let's get that very clear. However, they have approached me several different times about PACE is just property assessed clean energy. And I certainly don't think it's our role as a government to tell any one of our constituents that they cannot use, as you stated, a financial tool. There's 137 of these ESIDs throughout the state of Ohio that has lent close to $400 million. So if it was a bad program, there wouldn't be that many set up. There's economic development coordinators out there that are quoted stating that this has been a lifesaver. And it's also been there's a project up in the Northeast that was able to bring $200 million economic development strategy to Ohio instead of West Virginia. So I appreciate you guys looking into this and having a bond attorney or a bond financier to speak intelligently about PACE. I think it's comparing apples and oranges. And I just don't think it's our job as a city, as a government body, as a legislative body to pass anything that could be a helpful tool. It's not our job to tell, it's not my job to tell a company out there that, yes, this is available. And there is one here locally, and they make a very good financial case why this can save their hotel. They just built their hotel in 2020. Everybody knew what happened then, right? I mean, they are down, literally from their projections, 86%. And here we are as a body, as a council, and not bringing PACE experts in. We didn't, not once.
We got an opinion on how to handle the hotel if I don't know if this is an appropriate forum, but Brenda gave us an opinion on the difficulty with setting up a PACE in ESID for the hotel project.
To my point, what I would like to do.
Retroactively.
If you guys would entertain, what I would like to do, I think there's PACE financiers out there that could come and speak extremely intelligent. If we wanted to do a work session, have them in there with us. And I would, because the person that with the bond lawyer, the attorney firm, half of them have been set up with the exact same attorney firm. So of the 137 ESID districts, to where our bond attorney saying it's extremely difficult, you can't do it the way we're doing, that same exact law firm has set up almost half of them throughout the state of Ohio. So I just find I'm getting conflicting stories. Again, I have never used it, but in the event that one of our constituents, a company, that they can use it as a refinancing tool and save them on their mezzanine financing, taking their interest rate from almost 10% down to 6.5%. You guys do that math, that's a huge savings. And I think I'm just not on board with, unless maybe in our work session, we could have someone that has actually done some of these, set these up, come in and talk to us, opposed to talking to a bond attorney that has, her law firm has, but she hasn't. So I'd just be curious and I'd be interested so we all could hear it collectively. I mean, we heard it in our.
Yes, and I also heard it from, I have to admit, I heard it from bond counsel. She was pretty adamant, you can't do a retroactive. She made that comment.
Well, and as mentioned, I've just heard to the contrary to that. But again, if we're having a work session on it, I think we could get people that are experts in the room and bring her. Again, I'm just not a big fan of telling a company if there is this type of fine. I don't tell them what type of mortgage to take. We don't tell them you can or can't refinance your property. We just don't do it.
Who's telling them that?
We are.
No, we're not telling them that. We don't have a program.
They can't refinance it with, I know.
So what we have to
We're not
tell them
setting
is,
up an ESID.
but what we have to tell them is our bond counsel has told us it's not legally viable to set it up retroactively.
Okay, well,
That's
again, so
unfortunate. It's not that we are,
has she ever set up a PACE district?
I don't know. But she researched the topic prior to our meeting and the question about a retroactive.
Well, maybe she should talk to some of her other attorneys in her law firm too, then. I think it would be a good, I would love to learn more in regards to people that actually have done it, opposed to, is there competition with her being a bond? I don't know. But I'm just saying, I would like the ability for all of us to hear it collectively in a work session, if you guys are willing to do it. Because I read a letter. They sent me the letter of the owners of the hotel. Has everybody read that? It's a really good letter. And I think we should all take time to read it and try to understand it. But I mean, I understand where the committee, where they landed. We have to listen, to the bond attorney or the bond lawyer. But again, I would highly suggest that we look into it with folks that have actually done it, so we can maybe be able to answer their questions, opposed to someone that has never set one of these up. Warren County has set one up.
No.
What is their ESID?
Jeff?
Well, maybe we can have Matt know on the couch.
Jeff, what I heard.
I can just tell, I understand what you're saying. Counties don't have the authority to establish ESIDs. But, and I forget, it was at Turtle Creek Township established an ESID. And then my understanding is that then they contract with the Warren County Port Authority to administer that. And that's why it's generally referred to as a Warren County ESID, but it's actually, it's not the county.
And mind you,
it's
also,
township.
the Secretary of State and the state auditor have to sign off on each and every one of these ESIDs. So I don't think 137 are going to slip by them. And the Secretary of State's going to say, nope, that doesn't fit the bill. Or the state auditor is going to say, nope, that's illegal. We're not going to do it. So if every one of these districts have to pass, the Secretary of State and the state auditor, I'd be in awe that they signed off on them if it's not legal to set up.
I just want, if I could, I want to clarify one thing, because I hope I didn't give this impression. The opinion you got from bond counsel is not that e-SIDs in general are not legal or not appropriate. They are absolutely legal and appropriate. They're created by statute. If there was any question, it was only about the specific e-SID that the city was invited to join, not the concept of e-SIDs, and I don't know anything about the other 137 across the state. And she wasn't opining about those either.
Sure, I think they can speak to that too. I mean, honestly, they have never heard, this group has never heard the reasoning behind our bond counsel saying, this is why you can't set it up. So that's all I'm saying. I'm hearing conflicting stories. I think it behoove us to sit down, understand it, maybe from another, just because, like I said, I'm reading this letter and I'm going, I don't feel comfortable as a body sitting up here telling any of my constituents that how to finance it. And if this can save jobs, this can extend their debt, which they desperately need to do. I mean, they're down 86%. I mean, who can survive that? They opened in February 2020, a hotel. That's impossible. And now here we are as a council saying, nope, sorry.
Are you saying, sorry to interrupt, but just real quick, are you saying that they have legal opinion that it can be set up retroactively? I mean, I don't have a problem with Jeff inquiring about a second opinion. Let's do that. And we didn't say it's a bad program. We just thought at the time, the committee, we don't have 3 different projects that are, we don't have the demand right now. So we just said for now, it's.
But if it's offered, right? I mean, if
it comes up again and you have 3 simultaneous, they have to be simultaneous projects.
I think that's where their biggest beef is that they have sought counsel and opinions to where it is overwhelming. They believe it's overwhelming that you do not have to do that. So,
well, one of the things that we talked about that Deborah advises that she thinks that the state is eventually going to change the law.
444, I was supposed to, are you familiar with House Bill 444?
Not that specific bill, no.
Okay. Well, I think they are addressing it because and honestly, I was in DC and I sat through a PACE funding and I've known about this since 2014. And like I said, we have our own ability to finance our own projects. So I don't need PACE. So I want to make this perfectly clear that this isn't self-serving, but if we have folks that are inside Mason that want to do it, I just think, I'd much rather err on the side of being pro-business than saying you can't do that. So that's just my opinion. And I would, if there is a secondary opinion that we could listen to and learn more about it, I think it'd be smart of this body to do that.
Thanks. We will work on that. We will work on that as quickly as we can and could take some time. So I don't know that we can do it for the next work session, but we'll get to it. And we certainly wished that hotel the best. I don't feel like I should name them, but the entire region is hurting with tourism, that being our #1 industry in Warren County, and getting the economy open and having least restrictive measures is so important for these businesses to bounce back. So we're all rooting for them, that's for sure. I think that's it with government policy and legislation. Does anybody have anything for old new business in addition? Tony?
If I may, I took a visit to the service center and I saw our new wing plow. I think Eric sent you a video in regards to that. I actually talked to the operator. He loves it. Okay. I've also had little discussions with the city manager. Technically, you can have one person going out there and doing the same thing the 2 plows do at the same time. So you could take some of those resources and put them in the subdivisions and have the wing plow. And the wing plow, I think works really nice with the large number of multi-lane highways we have in the city and that. So it's an awesome piece of equipment as far as a hunk of steel on the side of the truck. And I also am always impressed. I was not on council, but I will give kudos to council on the service center that was built during several years ago. I think we have facilitized them pretty well. I went in there. I'm trying to remember what day it was. They were getting ready for the next snow. I know they're getting ready for the next snowstorm. We only had like a couple inches. Trucks are all lined up, all clean, and they're all loaded with salt, ready to go. Now, there might not have been any salt in the salt bin, but they had salt in the trucks. So the wing plow, you saw the video. I've looked at it in person, talked to the operator. I think there's a couple operators. My understanding, some of them have a little concern as far as when you make corners with it. One of the things I didn't know, and this is how technical we have become, there is a laser that shines on the edge of the road, and he follows that laser, and that tells him where his wing plow is. So basically, he's not taking mailboxes down. Okay, so it's a pretty amazing piece of equipment. So it's just how technical some of these operations have become from 20, 30 years ago of slinging salt in the back of a spreader and doing the best you could with the plow. It's an improvement for our residents. That's all I can say. If you get a chance, stop out and take a look at it before they take it off for the. Hopefully, they get to take it off soon for the season. But you know,
Mayor. Yeah, anyone that knows me, I saw that. My favorite thing ever to do is plow snow. I love it. I've done it all my life, and I kind of miss it. I haven't done it lately. I didn't do it at all this year, which stinks. But I saw that, and I thought, can I ride along? Is that possible? Like, I want to get in there and watch that thing work. So just in the event we have another snowfall, I'm going to do that.
You have to have a CDL to drive the plow. Do you have a CDL, Mr. Chance?
No, I'm riding.
Okay.
I wouldn't want
Work
to
on that.
operate the wing plow.
Let's work on that. You
I can
got
do
your CDL for next winter. Okay, that's awesome. The school children are very unhappy about that wing plow, by the way. Councilmember Nelson.
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to remove negotiations with the Cohen property for now. I just don't feel like we've vetted it enough. There's a lot of controversy going on. We cannot even talk or discuss any kind of negotiations with anyone else. So I'd like to make a motion to take that off the table for Eric to continue to negotiate at this time.
I'll second.
Okay, we have to have any council discussion. Yes.
When you say stop discussion, meaning with Jim?
With Jim Cohen and CMC Properties, yes.
My personal opinion, I've always said, if the Cohen deal is the best deal, let's look at it. Let's figure out a way to get it done. But I've also said competition is the best way to understand what is going to come down to what's going to be best for our downtown. So I don't know about, like, if I'm all about stopping negotiations, but I think we should be able to have simultaneous discussions with other developers. Because as I said, that when we start allowing a development to be developer driven, talking about self-serving, and they're going to do everything they can that's going to benefit them, opposed to community driven. So I don't know about stopping negotiations with Jim, because I'd like to see what he's going to offer.
Well,
but I would like to see what other people are going to offer as well. And right now, I think we discussed in our last meeting that we can't have any other discussions because it would not be
right, Mayor.
Good practice or whatever we called it. So that's kind of my opinion on it.
So we have to stop it in order to open it up for everyone. And that's my point. I want to open it up. I want to, if we're going to be giving free property away, which I don't agree with, but if we are, we need to open it up to allow everybody to bid on it, everybody to put something together, and we need to look at all of those and vet all of those proposals. We haven't done that. And so in order to do that, we have to stop negotiations with Cohen until so it allows us to open that process back up. And also, the not even being able to sell, 0.1 acres to Common Beer. I think that's a huge problem as well, which we can vote on that, after to see what people want to do.
Any other council members have comments of discussion about that motion?
Mayor. Yes. Yeah, I mean, I would agree. I mean, I think, again, this was a hasty motion that was put into place to begin with. I think it was done, it was ill-advised. I think, again, we need competition. We need to see what the best possible option is out there. And we haven't. We saw one option and, we hastily put forth a motion to enter in negotiations, stopping anything else that we could possibly do or any other discussions. And then to find out a month ago that there was a potential to help out a small business owner or even work with a small business owner that wanted a fraction of that property 2 years ago. And then find out that it was brought up again and we can't even talk to him about it. You know, and that's not okay. So I'm absolutely for stopping this and opening this up to better and more competition, because I think what we're going to get is we're going to get the absolute best from Mr. Cohen, and we're going to get the best from some other developers as well. And we'll be able to make the best decision possible for the city of Mason at that point. Thanks.
Anyone else? Member Honderlow?
Mayor, if I can. So we keep throwing out competition, and we all know, especially as we just saw tonight on all these bids, we get competitive bids on everything the city does. So of course, why do you do that? Because that drives down the price. So this sounds like a great idea to have competition or competitive bids on this development idea. There's just one big problem, is that this developer owns the key piece of property there. It's not open to a bunch of other developers. He alone owns it, and it's his development idea. So I'm not quite sure how you can have competing ideas on this. The one that came forth was 20-something units versus 100. And I think we both know that's not even an apples to apples comparison from anybody else. So I just don't get how, I mean, it sounds good if you're just trying to throw something out there that sounds great, that everybody would nod their head. Yeah, we all want competition. But when you see the details, the fact that, you know, there's a key piece of property that this developer personally owns, personally with his company, that controls anything that gets developed right there, including his property. Thank you.
Mayor.
Yes.
To that point, you know, Councilman, I think you made our argument, right? Who knows if 20 is better or if 100 is better? Have we done any traffic studies? Putting 100 pieces of new residents right there, we have no idea. And he owns 0.4 acres compared to our 4.6. So it's not like he owns a majority of this. He owns 1/10. I don't know. Is that what it is?
What is the breakdown on that? I can't remember.
I have the numbers somewhere.
Kurt, do you remember the breakdown on what we own contiguous and his parcel that's the kind of the keyhole or the middle piece?
I believe ours is about 4 acres and his is just under an acre.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Anyone else? Yeah.
If I can just jump in there. I think we're forgetting, and I think Vice Mayor Gill brought it up either the last council session or maybe the one before. This is an investor that's willing to make a $20 million investment into our downtown. And if we would had anybody else make such offer, maybe I can ask the city manager. Eric, do you know the last time we had an investor wanting to invest $20 million in our downtown? And do you know of anybody else willing to do something like that?
Mason Arts.
No, I'm not aware of one that was specific to downtown. There have been other folks, Councilmember Nelson referenced the Mason Arts Council, that had interest in raising and making that scale of investment. I'm not aware of another one.
And so you've been the city manager for how many years?
15, 16?
Is that all?
No.
20.
But have we ever,
So the point is, if I can finish, okay, so in, let's say 15 to 20 years that you've been city manager, we've never had a developer come want to make an offer like this. There's been nothing that's, and we've not seen anything like this. And the same developer who also now developed successful properties in Loveland and in Milford and in Hamilton and is now currently doing one in the city of Lebanon. Do you think maybe they had offers from other developers somewhere else that maybe they had and they just said, well, his was the best deal? I mean, how many developers come to cities to make $20 million investments?
Well,
because it's a pretty ironic situation in my mind that you have, all these other city councils agreeing to see a situation like this come into their downtown.
Mayor, And I think that's the irony that you're bringing it up because TJ, you have always 100% always been against giving away land. And now in this deal, you're all in. So I'm just confused because, you know, in the spirit of who you're supposed to be, you're like, I'm totally against giving away land. And in how many ever years you've been on your city manager, Eric, have we ever announced that here's free land? Have we ever said, hey, we're going to do roughly $6 million improvement to enhance your project?
I'm not aware of
Have
anything.
we
but I
ever
have-
asked for a 15-year abatement? Have we ever offered up a 15-year abatement? And I could go on and on and on.
I think
but
what's
we've
important to
offered-
remember here from my perspective, it's developers, talking with developers, often have ambitions, often have proposals. So a lot of your questions kind of catch me off guard because there's always talk, and some of that talk, there's always dreams, there's always, the developers kind of work in that area of what's possible, what's deliverable. I think I can tell you, certainly on this property, certainly in downtown, have not progressed this far with a single developer that had plans to this concrete nature.
And do we know if Mr. Cohen has interacted with any of our downtown business owners?
Yes,
Can
he's told us.
give us a list. I would love to know a list of the business owners that he has sat down with. And I know we don't like to bring up the chamber, but has he sat down with the chamber? Has he sat down
yes,
with
you know
CDC?
that.
Community Development Incorporation, we set this up for projects that are just like this, that you're talking about many other cities, they do the exact same thing. You want to know why? Because they depoliticize these type of developments. And they say, hey, I got an idea. Let's set up a community development corporation so people like us don't stand up here and try to act like experts. That's my opinion. Because first of all, I'm not an expert on downtown development. And I don't believe, Mr. Hanson, I know you're really good at what you do. I don't believe you are. And I think it's a bad position for you to be in negotiating with one developer what is best for our entire downtown. I don't know. I didn't know that was in your job scope, but.
Member Chance, just to address a couple things. When we had Mr. Cohen with us in open session, he mentioned he's had about 60 meetings over this project with a variety of 60 at least. And the very first meeting he had was in February of 2019 at Two Cities Pizza with Mayor Kidd and Sherry Taylor, the president of the chamber, at the invitation of the owners of Two Cities Pizza. That's how he came to Mason and learned about Mason. On the comment on the CDC can help facilitate projects that are outside the capability perhaps of the governing body, but it's not perfect. And my issue with the CDC is that our job is to represent the residents and businesses, the taxpayers of Mason, and that takes away their representation when we take something and put it in their hands and fund it with public money. And so that's my issue with that. And you guys are talking about competition, and I do believe that there are competing interests and ideas among council members and chamber members perhaps, and they just haven't all come out in the open. But I'll talk more about competition in a minute. I think Member Honorlaw had something to add.
I had actually had something. Thank you.
Oh.
Mayor, or
Okay, go
Councilman
ahead.
Honorlaw, you had mentioned bids, drive down price. How many bids have we gotten on this property? We haven't entertained any others than his. We received an offer, right? We haven't actually entertained any other bids, and that's the whole point. So we haven't actually looked at anything else. And Councilmember Chance's point, he owns a piece of property, and we don't even know what other offers would come in because we haven't entertained it, because we've locked ourselves into something. We've pigeonholed ourselves into something because we can't do anything else, because you guys hastily made a motion to have him enter into negotiations with this one developer, right? I mean, so we don't have anything. And the mention of the $20 million project actually happened in executive session. So I'd be cautious as to maybe the comments that you're making about.
That's actually been out in open session.
When he brought up it in the last meeting, it was an executive session. So
Oh, I'm sorry.
Mayor, if I can, a couple things. I know of at least one downtown business owner that Mr. Cohen had spoke to, and I believe that was you, Councilmember Chance, right? I'm on council. Right, right. So you not only own a business, but you also own a property right there on East Main.
I own 2 properties on
Thank
East Main Street. And I've also went and visited Hamilton. I also went and visited Loveland. You guys, I like his, what he does.
Can I finish my point? So my point was that, okay, so you alone, as you own now 2 properties on East Main, right across the street where this development would be a great benefit to your businesses. Your property values would go great. The point about, this is a return on investment. When you start talking about CRAs, what we are investing in and seeing happen for our downtown now. So I've been living here my entire life. I'm 57 years old. I've seen the downtown. I've seen what the businesses come and go, and I see an opportunity here to help all our downtown businesses by adding, 100 units, 100 different families, if you will, right in downtown, walking distance to our downtown. And I would think every business owner downtown can hardly imagine what it would be like, whether it's Common Beer or Yost Pharmacy or Two Cities, or how far that the walking distance of downtown to have that many new customers walking distance that would come patronize their businesses. And I would think if you're for small business and if you're for the downtown, which when I ran 3.5 years ago, and I think even 1.5 years ago when there was another council race, we saw every council member talk about how downtown was the #1 priority, how we can help those businesses and help revitalize downtown. Here's a single vote that brings in where somebody else is investing their money, $20 million, that's going to help the downtown. And I ran on wanting to do that, and I'm 100%. I see no other thing that can help our downtown like this. I would love to think that there was tons of other offers of business owners that bought up property and are hoping to do something. This is amazing opportunity for our downtown in my mind.
Here.
Let me think. There was one other point. Okay. Thank you, Mayor.
Member Bradburn or Vice Mayor Gilb, do either of you want to add something before other folks speak again?
I'm ready to call the question.
Anything from you, Vice Mayor Gilb? Okay, go ahead, Member Chance.
No, I mean, that's where I get a little confused when you speak, Councilmember Hunter. You just mentioned that you would like to see 100 other offers. Our legislation
Not what he said.
passed.
100 households.
But he also said 100 other, you'd like to see other offers. You'd like to see a bunch of people come, right? 100 other offers is what I wrote down. Did I hear you wrong?
I did talk about 100 units, but I'd like to see, I don't know if I said 100, as many offers. Sure, everything we'd like to do is be able to see as many developers as possible come into our downtown.
So do we understand this?
Property, can I finish?
I would like,
Can
I was actually speaking.
You asked me a question. Can
But-
I finish answering it?
Sure.
Thank you. So the point is, this property that's in question, that developer owns the key piece of property that will revitalize that.
He owns
downtown.
0.74 acres.
Absolutely.
Compared to our 4.2. We've had another development that is willing to come in and pay market value for the land and develop around it. Oh, and then what if we had a partnership with Mr. Cohen and another developer? But here we are, again, I've said it, we have our hands tied. We're sitting here, I mean, again, here we are, a bunch of developer experts, and we can't do it. But you're sitting here saying, we need other offers, we need other developers. Well, let them come in.
Councilmember Chance, I've lived here longer than you my entire life.
I've lived here since 1982,
Okay.
so I've been here a long
But
time.
my point is, okay, I've seen it. I was going to the downtown committees as a citizen for years before I ever ran for office. I went to all those meetings because I was caring what was happening downtown. There were no offers then.
Sure.
No, we've had nothing like this.
There's been plenty of offers, so there has been. We've had those discussions.
We have, this is the first series offer that I'm aware of. There are people that have been buying up parcels around downtown and, investing in them and renting them or using them themselves. But this is the first time that we've had an offer of this magnitude for a public-private partnership made to the city. And to clarify your point, Member Hunterlaw, were you trying to say you want lots of offers for the rest of the downtown district or for this current area in question?
Well, the current area in question, that developer owns the key piece of property.
Yeah.
And so the other offer that came from the Platt brothers, right, was 20 units. You cannot get 100 units without that key piece of property. Otherwise, the
Again, that's
brothers
what
would
I'm,
have-
we don't even know, we don't even know what we want, right? We have never heard like,
Well-
as many people living downtown as we can right now.
okay, and we have a thoroughfare, right? We don't, our downtown is much different than a Lebanon, a Milford, all of these different ones. It's much different. Can you imagine? We had to have a traffic study when they put, what, 37 just north of that parcel? There was a major concern then. And we're talking about putting 100 closer to the downtown, to the main artery. And we're sitting here going, here you go, bud. Carte blanche, do what you have to do. And we have no idea. We don't know what we want downtown. He's not asking any of the stakeholders. He's not asking.
See, I think that's not true.
Oh, well, okay. Well, I would love, then let's have Mr. Cohen come and give us a presentation.
I've heard all 7 council members say they're in favor of this. We want to see something happen downtown.
I'm the first to raise my
In
hand.
work session.
I don't think all 7 of us
Private-
got that.
I've heard-
We voted 4 to
Say
3.
They're in favor of this development,
I
right? You
have-
have not
I
have 7 council members say that they're in favor of this. Don't talk for me.
Uh-huh.
Speak for
Yeah,
yourself.
you shouldn't be addressing one another. Sorry.
Mayor, can I just speak one more time?
Yeah. Go
Okay.
ahead.
I think one thing, aside from the fact of giving free taxpayer land away, I think we also need to think about, do we really want 100 apartment units on that corner? What is that going to do to our schools? That's a concern for me. He just purchased, another thing, he just purchased that land in July. I have serious question as to why he purchased it in July. Also, we're not going to be really, our city derives the most income taxes from earnings tax. And the individuals in these 100 units most likely will not be adding to our earnings tax because of the credit. It's not normally the individuals who live within our city, it's the workers within our city. So now we've taken up a huge spot of land and we've flooded our school systems and we're not really going to be collecting any earnings tax from it. So, I mean, aside from the fact that we shouldn't be giving free taxpayer land away, we haven't even done any vetting for any other companies to come in or developers to come in, and these other issues, flooding the schools, no earnings tax. On top of the fact that he's wanting us to put in $6+ million worth of improvements of city money. I just have an issue with the whole thing.
All right, Mayor, if I may, let the administration work with the developer, bring it back to us, and we'll make a decision. Okay, I'm ready to vote.
I can answer a couple of the things that Member Nelson brought up. As far as the schools, I actually prepared an analysis on income that would come to the schools between both the proposals, between the Mason Oaks proposal and the Cohen proposal. And I actually did it over the weekend and I thought I'd share it tonight if the topic came up, and I'm just shocked that it came up, but I wasn't sure. There's a lot going around the internet, misunderstanding. And so I prepared a statement to kind of help clear that up. One thing we learned when the townhomes went in is the topic of traffic and school children. And one thing we learned about these types of residences that single-family homes produce a lot more traffic than these multifamily residents. They tend to, the research shows they tend to leave once and come back once, and they don't go out multiple times a day like we might in single-family homes, especially with lots of kids. They also tend to not attract school children, although there could be some, and an agreement that was worked out in Lebanon along with the pilot is, and I may not be describing this exactly, but if the development hit a certain threshold number that they agreed upon of school children, that Mr. Cohen would compensate the schools for that and for that number, I think, per child. But I don't know what their agreement is exactly, but they did address that concern because their development in Lebanon is a mixture of flats and townhomes. And commercial real estate. So it's also mixed use on North Broadway in Lebanon. One of the main topics that's come up is the whole idea of competition. And I'm gonna go out there and say that I think this idea about competition and this argument that some of you are raising is a red herring, because there are things that elected officials can do to put their thumbs on the scales to make things happen and to not make things happen. And my problem with that argument has always been that that land has been there, and it was known as early as 2018 that the city was interested in partnering with a developer to do a mixed-use development. Mr. Cohen competed for that purchase of that land. He took out an option, he competed for it, and he purchased it. And he did that based on information that he got from council. And I actually prepared a statement about that, but I think it bothers me when elected officials or public officials put their thumb on the scale to either prevent competition to the advantage of special interests that, you know, they're not disclosing, or to make competition impossible for people that are truly trying to compete. And so I'm just not in agreement with the competition thing. We've followed the right process. I'm glad that Member Stricula admitted on the Scott Sloan show that we were following the proper process after dropping lots of hints in our meetings that we were violating proper process or violating the spirit of executive session. He did clarify that with Scott Sloan that we have not violated any rules by considering this proposal, but they did go on to talk about things like an ethical dilemma, and we're not in an ethical dilemma over this. We're following proper process. I could go into detail about, you know, the advantages of the schools, but I want to give you a little bit of background information, if you'll bear with me, because it's relevant to the motion. And, you know, we've been saying Cohen or CMC, but it's actually an entity called Keystone Lot LLC, and we'll just call it Keystone. That's owned by Jim Cohen and another individual, a partner. They secured an option to purchase in 2019 the property that he owns now from Mr. Malhotra. So he had an option in 2019, and he closed the purchase in July of 2020. So that answers your question about that. It's in a key parcel of property at 108 East Church Street, and I'll just call it the property after this. Keystone is proposed a mixed-use development with high-end apartments, about 100 units, and upscale retail, about 10,000 square feet for that site, coupled with surrounding city-owned property, and I'll abbreviate that from time to time and call that just the project. Keystone first proposed this project to the former Mayor Mason in 2019. With the mayor's support and encouragement, obtained a purchase option at that time for the property. It's important to note that Mr. Cohen and his Keystone partner own Keystone entity as well as CMC Properties. You may be familiar with Mr. Cohen through CMC Properties, a Cincinnati-based company that has been a member of the Mason community since the early 2000s. Its office buildings are home to some 300 small businesses right here in Mason. If your child has taken driver's ed in Mason, then you and thousands of other parents like me have likely been to the CMC Office Center Mason property many times on Central Park Boulevard. They've even been given an award by the Northeast Cincinnati Chamber of Commerce for a professional service award for continuing efforts promoting small business owners in Mason, according to their website. All right, Keystone's project proposal always included the incorporation of surrounding Mason-owned real estate, which is why Keystone first met with former Mayor Kidd at the invitation of the owners of Two Cities Pizza about a potential project on February 5th of 2019. I have a document about that I can get to you guys. Mayor Kidd informed the owners of the Mason Oaks development about that in writing shortly after that. I later met Mr. Cohen for the first time in the summer of 2019 in an open meeting with the rest of council where we toured Loveland Station with Mr. Cohen as our guide. We got to see that project, its scale, and how it could be scaled to fit the contiguous acreage in Mason if we combine the city-owned acres with the property now owned by Keystone. It was always understood that facilitation of the Keystone project would require a land contribution or outright purchase of some type to Keystone, even though the details of that were not worked out and are currently being negotiated and cannot be disclosed to the public at this time. So we shouldn't even be saying that we're giving something away for free, because it's just not appropriate right now. Years ago, between 2003 and 2007, I believe, Mason purchased a number of homes on the east side of Mason Montgomery Road, north of Main Street, and a few other adjacent properties to facilitate road and utility improvements. In order to evaluate Keystone's proposal, the current value of the city-owned parcels in question should be considered, which Keystone wants to include in its proposed development, along with the future value and benefits Mason may expect for the public in the downtown overlay district as council evaluates a public-private partnership for the project. I'll call that a PPP. It has been asserted by some council members that Mason's acreage contiguous to the project is currently worth $2 million, and that we should enter the best deal for the city based solely on the initial purchase price paid for the city-owned property without considering the other developmental, financial, and collateral benefits offered by the project. Over a number of years, Mason purchased real estate adjacent to the property owned by Mr. Cohen for a total of approximately $1.9 million. That's true. Those purchase amounts were primarily supported by the homes and other structures that existed on the properties at the time Mason purchased them. Mason purchased those properties not for the homes and structures, but to attain rights of way and easements for road and utility improvements. Accordingly, after the lots were purchased, Mason removed all of those homes and structures. Mason has used the lots for the purposes of which they were purchased. The remaining vacant lots and remnants are not worth the same amount as when Mason purchased them, but Mason should appraise the current value of that real estate in assessing this Keystone project. Keystone's project, with its mixed-use development, could generate tangible, measurable, and substantial increased tax revenue. Its project model has been successful in other local downtowns, like the ones that Keystone Principals developed in Loveland, Milford, and Hamilton. The Keystone members have also broken ground on another similar project in Lebanon last November. The county auditor values the Mason property parcels Keystone wants for its project at approximately $500,000, not $1.9 million. The reason for that valuation is that the parcels are now vacant land. In addition, because those parcels are owned by the city, they generate no real estate tax revenue for the county, the city, or Mason schools. The Mason real estate adjacent to Keystone's property is no longer needed by Mason for infrastructure improvements, rights of way, or road improvements at this time. Mason also does not need the property for any other public purpose or use currently. Thus, it's a good time for Mason to transfer the property for a use that will generate tax revenue supporting Mason and its schools. So how do we evaluate the highest and best usage of Mason's downtown parcels? What value might we generate to benefit the downtown districts, our residents and businesses? Two other entities have asked to purchase some of Mason's downtown property there. It's worth comparing the value of those proposed transactions to the Keystone project. The first alternative transaction, and by far the more significant of the two other alternatives, is a proposal submitted by some of the owners of Mason the Mason Oaks townhomes that are located just north of the project on the east side of Mason Montgomery Road. Those individuals have offered Mason $400,000 for some of Mason's real estate and want to construct a 24-unit residential townhome development similar to but smaller than the Mason Oaks. The current 44-unit Mason Oaks development in 2020 generated $102,377.22 total property tax revenue, with $76,470.96 going to schools and the rest to the county and the city. If we assume that the proposed 24-unit project will generate revenue at a prorated similar rate, it will generate about 60% of the revenue of the current Mason Oaks, or another $60,000 in annual property taxes, with approximately an additional $46,000 annually going to the Mason schools. And the bulk of the balance going to the county, Mason would only get 4.4 mils, or about $5,000 total per year in real estate tax revenue. Thus, the Mason Oaks proposal is worth $400,000 up front, plus $46,000 per year to Mason Schools and $5,000 a year to Mason for fire, emergency, and safety services. The Keystone project is a $20 million mixed-use development with 100 residential units and 10,000 square feet of commercial space proposed so far. If we assume that the tax revenue is at least the $20 million projected cost of the project, we can make an interesting value comparison to the alternative Mason Oaks proposal. And I have a visual aid we can use, and I'm going to, Kurt, would you mind putting this up on the projector? I know this is long, but I think this is really going to help the public. This is for the public, not so much council. It is for council, but could you show this side up first, and then we'll switch to this one a little later. So I'm looking at tax revenue that would be generated by both projects for the schools. We know that in Mason, we only collect 4.4 mils, so it's not a big number no matter what in property tax to Mason. The county gets most of it, and the schools get most of everything else. Well, the schools get more than the county. So using a formula to figure all of that out, I came up with these numbers. Thanks, Kurt. So we'll just start at the top there, but I'll just walk you through it. Using current auditor's website data, we can estimate that the Mason Oaks proposal would generate $688,238.40 in tax revenue to Mason schools over a 15-year abatement period. Actually, Kurt, oh, wait, we might want to. I know, I'm thinking maybe they're down at the bottom. So this is how I came up with, we'll go back up to the top in a minute, but I made some educated guesses on the Keystone property based on the exact same millage rate as what is being charged to Mason Oaks. I can't guarantee that they'll have the exact same millage rate because that's complicated. The schools will be able to calculate that, but if they have the same millage rate, I estimate that Keystone would generate $357,000 a year in school tax after the abatement. During the period of the abatement, a pilot would be paid to the schools that's agreed upon between the developer and the schools. We have no authority over that, and that's a payment in lieu of taxes. However, in Mason, we've had a longstanding practice of requiring pilots when we do economic development packages with other companies. So let me start this paragraph over. So using the current auditor's website data, we can estimate the Mason Oaks proposal would generate $688,238.40 in tax revenue to Mason schools over a 15-year abatement period, while the Keystone project would generate no income to the schools if there were no pilot program. But in the three-year period after the abatement ends, the Keystone project will generate $1,071,000 to Mason schools compared to the Mason Oaks proposal of $825,885.68. For that 3-year period, plus the preceding 15 years, $688,238 plus another 3 years of tax payments of $137,647.68. And if you that's 3 times 45,882 a year. And that equals a total. That's how I got the total of $825,885. Thus, in the 3rd year after the end of a 15-year tax payment, the Keystone project will already generate more revenue for Mason schools of over $174,000 in excess of the entire tax revenue for 18 years generated by the Mason Oaks proposal. And that would be in the next handout that I gave you, I believe. Oh, I lost my place, I'm so sorry. Okay. I know it's hard to follow. I didn't plan on quite doing it this way. I'm getting some feedback here. So in the 3rd year after the end of a 15-year tax abatement, the Keystone project will already generate more tax revenue for Mason schools of over $174,000 in excess of the entire tax revenue for 18 years generated by the Mason Oaks proposal to Mason schools without any tax abatement. And in the fourth year and thereafter, the Keystone project will generate each year $311,000 more than the Mason Oaks proposal. Thus, in the fourth year after the abatement ends, the Keystone project not only substantially generates more than the Mason Oaks proposal, it will also generate more than the original purchase price of $400,000 the Mason Oaks proposes to pay for the land up front. In 10 years, Keystone will pay $3.1 million more in Mason school tax revenue than the Mason Oaks proposal post-abatement. The Keystone proposal, however, is far more economically advantageous than the above analysis already proves. While Mason will abate real estate taxes for up to 15 years for worthy development projects, it always requires the developer to enter into an agreement with the Mason schools for a pilot, payment in lieu of taxes amount. Keystone will have to enter a pilot, which is negotiated independently from the city. The pilot covers the abatement period. We have no control over what the schools and Keystone may agree upon, but we have a longstanding practice of supporting the schools' pilot programs in our economic development packages with other companies. The Keystone pilot would generate revenue far in excess of the Mason Oaks proposal, and that the Keystone project will exceed the Mason Oaks financial proposal, including both the original $400,000 land payment and the tax payments within just 2 to 3 years after the abatement expiration. Earnings tax revenue. The Keystone project could also bring in earnings tax revenue in its commercial space. If similar to the Lebanon estimates, that could be an annual of $2 million in added payroll and $1 million in added spending in the downtown area. The Mason Oaks proposal has no commercial retail component to generate payroll revenue. And it's unclear what spending would be. And that the size of the development in Lebanon is similar to Mason's, a little bit smaller, but I got those numbers from the Dayton Daily News articles about the Lebanon developments. According to reports from the Dayton Daily News, Mr. Cohen was in discussions with Lebanon City Council in 2018. The Lebanon Council recognized it was competing with other cities to secure a public-private partnership at that time, and time was of the essence. Lebanon wanted to facilitate millions of dollars in public improvements tangential to and in a public-private partnership with Mr. Cohen's company. Cohen's Lebanon entity, 511 North Broadway, broke ground in November of last year, and the city of Lebanon is well on its way to a new gateway with a park, a fishing pond, which is the regional water detention basin constructed by the city, restaurants, and more. The Pulse Journal, or the Dayton Daily News, reported in December of 2020 an additional partnership with Mr. Cohen at a separate location to facilitate a potential new microbrewery and parking. There were no reported executive session links that I know of, resident protests, or contretemps at Lebanon City Council meetings about the fact that Lebanon was incentivizing Mr. Cohen to invest in Lebanon by bringing in modern housing and critical mass through a mixed-use development tangential to infrastructure improvements and a new park. And the city of Lebanon contributed 5.33 acres of publicly owned land to Mr. Cohen's $15 million project, so his is a little smaller, at 511 North Broadway, and granted it a 15-year tax abatement. Other cities have also partnered with entities involving Mr. Cohen to bring about downtown development, including developments in Milford, Loveland, and Hamilton. Mason, perhaps with more resources and capability than any other northern Cincinnati suburb, is being outdone by them all. These cities calculated the value of their projects differently than some on our council. Lebanon estimates that the 511 North Broadway development will generate an additional $1 million annually in spending at its own local businesses, giving them a chance to compete for more revenue, in addition to $2 million in annual job salary revenue, which will generate earnings tax collection. Mr. Cohen's proposal in Mason is quite similar, but he's proposing a larger $20 million project in our downtown while asking for similar concessions as he's received in Lebanon and also Hamilton and Milford. We did not offer him the abatement. He asked us for that, by the way. Each of those communities' partnerships is unique to its geographical and demographical attributes and challenges. Milford's Riverwalk is juxtaposed to the river with a beautiful bike and pedestrian areas. Loveland Station, home of the first graders in Claremont County, is a short walk to the Loveland Bike Trail and Little Miami River and surrounded by restaurants and fun amenities. Hamilton's Markham overlooks the river with a beautiful park and amphitheater and other local restaurants, one even owned by a local Mason area company. Each of those projects provides a 15-year tax abatement, except for Loveland's, because Loveland contributed $4 million in land value, which was substantially more than Hamilton's $570,000 in land value and Lebanon's 5.33 acres, and also what is asked of Mason, which is about 4 acres, a little more. So the value of gifting, some are lamenting we didn't purchase property now owned by Keystone, but that would have cost us more. That would have cost us an additional $600,000 to $750,000 to control all of that. So we're saving a little money that way. It would have had, let's see, they considered purchasing that property for $600,000 to $750,000 and wanted to remove the structures on the property and then possibly donate it along with Mason's adjacent property to a nonprofit entity, which would have paid no real estate taxes and would have generated no Mason earnings tax revenue. And Member Nelson mentioned it a few minutes ago that one of those possibilities was the Mason Arts Council.
Correction.
In other
never said
words,
that. Sorry, we need to make that clear. That land would never fit the Mason Arts Council. So please stop saying that that's.
I
was
thought
for
you
them.
mentioned. I thought you mentioned that.
No, they're willing to invest $30 million into our community for all of our residents, a Mason Arts facility, and
So you didn't
we
make
have
that area in question.
never.
Okay.
I've never said that. In fact, your husband has said that a couple times, and I have corrected him.
Okay.
And I'm correcting you now as well.
But anyway, if we had given it away to another nonprofit, it would have had no financial benefit to Mason. And if we give something away now to a nonprofit, it will have no financial benefit to the city because they don't pay taxes. So we have to, no, please stop.
This is bloated government.
It is bloated because there's been a lot of,
Exactly
whoa,
what
whoa, whoa.
government looks
Not appropriate. There's been a lot of mass confusion created by you with reckless comments.
educated guesses. At
Restless-
least I'm not making
reckless
educated
comments.
guess. This is educated guesses
Ashley,
that we're hearing.
Sorry, Councilmember Chance, you need to stop. Taking educated guesses based on public record. We're almost done, guys. We're almost done. So we need to talk about what is the value of gifting and what do we get in return for the benefits of our residents? What value do we want to extract from a partnership that can be a catalyst to much needed roadway improvements, added parking, beautiful pedestrian areas, and connectability to great places like our schools, community center, and our new state-of-the-art aquatic center, our new parks. We have Heritage Oak Park has been renovated. Pine Hill Park is being renovated. There's so much going for us. Imagine more places for our kids to walk after school, to hang out, and visitors traveling to this area to use our beautiful newly renovated parks and possibly a beautiful newly renovated downtown. Now, we're talking about one area, not the whole downtown, but this is what will spark other investors to come in and make proposals for downtown Mason and the rest of it. This is just the beginning. I don't believe we're pigeonholed or that we lack leverage. I believe we have a lot of leverage. What value can we generate from the downtown economy and the public with 100 new households requiring a minimum annual household income of $75,000 because that's what they would require? How do we calculate their annual discretionary spending of those residents? Lebanon calculates that at $1 million more in annual spending. Is there value in giving downtown Mason businesses a shot at competing for the business of those residents who are in close walking distance to all of Mason downtown businesses? What about the value of facilitating residential opportunities for our workforce and empty nesters who need options to live in the heart of Mason and to help create a vibrant downtown community? Hundreds of new manufacturing and research jobs are on their way to Mason's Research and Development Park right up the road, a new mixed-use development that is just a short drive or bike ride away from that development park, as well as our city center, community center, and other parks will make Mason better than it already is. All we have to do is imagine this new Mason and it'll happen. What can we imagine and reimagine Mason to be in the long term? And how can we as public officials equip the downtown district for success for the next 50 to 100 years? What will we regret? What we will regret in the future is what we fail to do now to bring new life, revenue, and amenities and vibrancy to our city. So these are educated guesses, these numbers based on data that I pulled from the auditor's website. I can't guarantee that it's absolutely correct and I can't predict the future, but we can take guesses and make comparisons and have rational discussions and thorough discussions. But if you don't we've got people that don't want to discuss anything at all because they're angry
No.
about competition, but we have to take this through the process and see it to the end. The public deserves that from us.
Okay.
So that my vote, I think you've figured out what it's going to be on this motion, but if, I think we've all had a time to speak, and I'm
Right.
sorry that
I'd
was
like
so
to
long.
Comment to that. Mayor, can I?
Prepared, I'll probably reply to you.
You probably won't have another statement prepared but the bottom line is, we just heard educated guesses. And we're comparing apples to oranges. We have no idea what we're doing, but here is a prime example of bloated government. Did you just hear that 30-minute dissertation, whatever long it was? We're up here choosing what is best for our downtown. Well, some of us, four out of 7 of us. And I'm absent. And if we're trying to compare, if this thing is so good, why just don't let these numbers come to life and be true? Let's get the real Mason Oaks thing. Let's understand what they want to do. And I would like to make another motion. Hey, can we have Jim Cohen please negotiate with Common Beer to buy that land? How do we do that? How do we do that?
That's not going to work right now.
Well, I want to make.
We have a different motion on the table right
All right,
now.
well, let's deal with that.
But these numbers are logical. They're based
not
on logic.
logical.
and
They're not logical.
How is it not logical?
Because the
Math.
bottom line is, it's apples to oranges. We have no idea what Mason Oaks is going to generate. We don't know what type of properties they're going
But
to.
we know what it already
don't know what
does
other-
generate.
We don't know what other participation or partnerships that they're going to bring to the table. We don't know anything. And that is my biggest beef. We don't know anything, but we're sitting up here reading a 12-minute presentation that you just so happen to have, and it just so happened to be brought up tonight, and it's comparing apples to oranges. You're making educated guesses. You're making it seem like it is fact, it's gospel, it's the Bible, and it's not. We have no idea. And we sit here and we act like this body knows exactly what we're talking about. And I didn't know we were all developers. I had no clue.
So is it safe to assume that you know nothing about what you speak about right now? So why should we listen to anything you have to say?
Don't listen to me. Let's listen to, you
So,
can clap all you want.
let's not.
But how about we
Mr.
have
Chance,
developers
come on.
in here?
We
Why don't
do have developers come
here
in.
that know that what they're, I don't claim to be a developer. I don't claim to know everything, but this is exactly what's wrong with big government policies. This is cumbersome and is absolutely done wrong. I would disagree with you, council members.
It's our job to be analytical and to represent the public. We are their representatives. It is not our job to abdicate and give it to an outside entity when we can do it ourselves.
Who are we giving it to? You guys don't.
You mentioned an
No, You're asking
organization.
me if I don't know what I'm talking about when it comes to developing downtown.
I know a little bit about it because I've been involved in the business.
One project downtown that was given.
It was a big project. And why would you say that?
Well, I'm just.
You're being very
that doesn't-
disrespectful and
that doesn't-
dishonorable of other
that doesn't
people's opinions.
That doesn't make you an expert. And I am just saying, I've said it many times, in the event that this Cohen thing is the way to go, I'm all in. But here we are, and I don't know. And I'll
All
be
right.
the first to admit, I don't know.
Anybody else have anything?
I just have 2 quick comments.
Yeah.
If this is such a great development deal, then why can't we open it up? And if it's so great, it will stay there, and all the other deals or offers will fall, and then it will be the winner. Number 1. And number 2, if he's willing to invest $20 million, why doesn't he just buy the property, purchase it, pay for it? Taxpayers work hard.
We're still in negotiations and we can't comment on that.
Of course we can't. That is exactly
But
why I have them.
we're supposed to be negotiating an executive session on acquisition of property.
That's exactly why I have the motion on the table. We need to stop these negotiations so we can vet this process a little better.
Mr. Cohen is paying $250,000 for 0.6 acres. $250,000 for 0.6 acres.
That's a completely separate project.
You just compared it to saying.
No. That's
All right,
a non sequitur. It's a completely separate project. Sorry. All right. Are we ready to call the roll? Ms.
Yes.
Lisa, can we call the roll? Thank you. That was long. I'm sorry.
Mayor,
Councilmember Hunter Law.
I'm sorry, Mayor, can we repeat the motion?
Yeah, let's repeat. The motion was to table.
No, I would like to take off the table any negotiations with Jim Cohen and CMC Properties so that we can.
Keystone Properties.
And Keystone Properties. although I don't think it's Keystone. Keystone bought that building. But anyways, I want to take it off the table so that we can properly vet this, look at it. And if we're going to give land away, open it up to all developers, open it up to the public and tell them, hey, we're giving this property away. Tell us what your best deal is. We'll look at it and decide from there.
So let's simplify the motion. I think what you really mean is you want to end negotiations with Mr. Cohen at this time.
Correct.
Okay, so that is the motion, to end negotiations with Mr. Cohen at this time. Is there a second?
I already seconded.
You did. Thank you. Okay, so it's all cleaned up now. Let's call the roll.
No.
Mayor Grossman,
No.
Councilmember Chance,
Yes.
Councilmember Nelson,
Yes.
Councilmember Bradburn,
No.
Councilmember Circula,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Gilb,
No. No.
So the motion fails.
Mayor, can I make a motion
Okay.
that we have Mr. Cohen deal with Common Beer to see if he can come up with a way to deal with them, to let them buy 0.1 acres so they can expand their business? Is that an appropriate motion?
Speak to that. I guess I would ask for some clarification, but what I would initially say is this body cannot take action on any kind of motion to direct a third party to do something with another
Well,
party.
okay. Can I make a
That-
motion? And maybe that is executive session. Can I make a motion that we can deal with Common Beer to make, so they can expand their business and buy the 0.1 acres that we currently own?
I think you can make a motion that we discuss this in executive session.
Why is it an executive session?
Because
It's
it's
already out in
about-
public. The public already knows.
Behind the scenes.
We own the property, and it's more complicated than just buying 0.1 acres. If you partition that off, it becomes a landlocked piece of property, and there are legal maneuvers that you have to go through to make that legal. I can't remember. It's because it doesn't have roadway access, the piece that they want. So you have to do some legal work on that to make it work.
It's attached to their current property.
I mean, I could talk with the engineer. I have not reviewed the proposal at all because when it first came up, we had been directed to negotiate with Mr. Cohen. So I haven't reviewed any of the specifics of that or where that piece might be or what it would connect to or whether it would leave a piece landlocked or not. So I can't speak to that right now.
We really need to have this discussion in executive session.
I have a problem with putting in an executive session. I just want to put it out there. We do too much in executive session, behind the scenes, without our residents seeing what's being talked about.
Well, it took a long time to share a lot of information about the, Mr. Chance. Would you share that with the rest of the audience, please?
Yeah,
Turn your microphone on.
Sure. I'm not in to listen to educated guesses about us deciding.
That's not what you said.
It was terrible information.
Okay, it's not terrible, it's true.
Sure it is. We don't know. It's
Very-
apples to oranges. We don't know.
You can't,
Why, who made you the expert in this whole situation?
I'm
trying to
simply,
justify this contract with Mr. Cohen. I just don't agree with
I
it.
made a comparison analysis. 24 units
It's a total.
versus 100 units.
But we don't know, as I mentioned, we don't know if there's any other partnerships that they're looking at, if there's any other things that they're bringing to the table.
They
even did mention that. If
They gave us a proposal in
But after
writing.
their proposal, I don't know it for verbatim, but they mentioned something, and Eric, Kurt, Jeff, correct me if I'm wrong, but they also said we're open to other negotiations for the other pieces of the property as well. Is that correct?
I don't remember that.
Is that
I
correct?
just remember $400,000, 24 units.
Well, I can probably bring, but
Mayor, can we move on?
It
I'm
wasn't
ready.
the time for them to make that proposal because we had already passed the motion to go into. So I don't know if you want to try to get a second for that, but I think we can discuss what you're talking about with Common Beer in executive session. I didn't hear a second to that. All right, so let's take 5 minutes recess and then we'll come back for recognition of visitors.
Sounds good.
I forgot a matter during old and new business, but it's a short one. Before we recognize visitors, there was the matter of the council meeting guidelines. And all we need to do at this point, it's very quick, we need a motion to take it off the table. And a second, it's non-debatable. If the motion passes, we'll put it on the agenda for the next council meeting. So it's very quick. So is there a motion to take the Mason City Council meeting guidelines that we were given a few weeks ago off the table?
Mayor, I'll make that motion.
Is there a second? All right, let's call the roll, please.
Mayor Grossman,
Yes.
Councilmember Chance,
No.
Councilmember Nelson,
No?
Councilmember Bradburn,
Yes.
Councilmember Stricula,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Gilb,
Back?
Vice Mayor Gilb, I think your microphone's muted. You need to unmute.
He needs to be reminded probably to turn his video back on. Yeah, sorry, I didn't realize he wasn't with us. Oh, great. Do you know what we're doing, Vice Mayor? We lost you.
Yes, sorry about that. Yep, we're good.
Okay, so,
Visitors.
well, no, we actually had a motion and a second to remove from the table the council meeting rules that we discussed in our committee. And all that means is it's non-debatable motion. If the motion passes, we'll simply put it on the agenda for the next meeting. So it's your turn to vote, yes or no, to take it off the table.
Yes, yes.
Yes? Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Hunterlaw.
Yes.
Okay, that motion passed 5-2, I think. Okay, now let's move on to recognition of visitors, item 21 on the agenda. Do we have anyone in the audience that wishes to speak tonight? All right, ma'am, just state your name and address at the podium for the record. Do we have anybody in the online queue? Okay, thank you. Ma'am, oh, we'll have to.
Shorty. Okay. My name is Annie Drogi, and I'm a Mason resident. And there's a lot to unpack from the past half hour or so. But I guess my question as a Mason resident at this point would be, we are in negotiations apparently with CMC. So what happens if the city manager and you guys decide, like, what happens after negotiations?
Well, the object would you? We don't need any heckling. That's enough.
I'm sorry, I'm not very good at this. Can you hear me? The intent is staff is negotiating towards a development agreement as directed by City Council. And that involves some back and forth with Mr. Cohen. We're in the middle of that back and forth. I've had several meetings. What I would anticipate, if that continues to go well and progress, is that we would be bringing a draft development agreement to council for their consideration and discussion.
Okay, would that just be one meeting where you guys get to decide on that development?
It would be however many meetings council needed to reach a conclusion and ultimately a vote. It's probably worth mentioning that would be in public session.
Thank you for your question. Anyone else? Miss, come on up.
Hi, my name is Margie Murray, and I live on Richmond Park Drive in Mason. And I've been a resident here for 20 some years, and we really enjoy Mason. And I think you guys really accomplished a lot of really great things tonight. It was good to see the progress with the pool, the playgrounds, the things that you have planned with the lighting and streets. And you guys seem to be on top of a lot of things, which I do appreciate as a Mason resident. My kids are older, but there's a lot of families in Mason, and I think they're really going to benefit from the future that you're helping to create for this community. One of the things that is a little upsetting to me right now is that it's late, and I know this is my first time hearing much about the development plans for the city. And it's, I think people have had a chance to speak in council, and Mayor Grossman was speaking, and I saw a lot of theatrics going on with the other council members, talking while she's talking, making hand gestures, shaking their head no. You had your chance to speak and you spoke, and that's part of your job here. But as a Mason resident, I'd rather listen and be able to hear clearly what the mayor's saying instead of watching the theatrics going on. That's a little distracting away from the energy of this meeting, of this committee, and also what you guys are really trying to accomplish, which I think would ultimately hopefully be in the best interests of all the residents of Mason. One of the other things I wanted to say about the development is that I think in cities, you see these types of apartment buildings, especially like my daughter lives in Indianapolis, and it's very developed in that way. There's, large units, and then the bottom there's restaurants, breweries, art shops, things that are really fun that make you want to go out into the community and walk around and socialize and enjoy your community. We work hard. We want to have some good downtime. I know we travel to Loveland a lot for that reason, because we like to go to the bike trail. We like to go to the restaurants. We like to shop and do things like that. See something a little different than what you find in a mainstream, big box store. So from a development standpoint, from what I can see, and also as an accountant, I would say, obviously, if you've got a larger development and you've also got, wealth coming in from businesses and taxes and things like that, that seems to be a little more beneficial. I think Mason has a lot of residential areas. We're mostly a residential area and a subdivision area. But this sounds something more eclectic, something more interesting that's going to attract a younger crowd, which I think would ultimately revitalize this community. It'd be nice to see younger people want to come and hang out in Mason and go to like Two Cities and Common Brewery and different places. I mean, they're coming in a little bit, but I think this would make it more attractive for them. And also, if you look at Deerfield Town Center in that area, what do you see? You see a lot of developments of residential apartments and things like that. And there's a lot of businesses there too, obviously, to support the people that live there and make it convenient for them to have that kind of lifestyle where they don't want to have to get in the car and drive everywhere they go. So I think it sounds, really interesting what you're talking about. I'm really, the fact that you guys haven't had offers before like this it seems like a good opportunity to me. That's a lot of money. I'm sure as a businessman, there's something in it for him, like there would be for anyone who is willing to put out this amount of income and energy into a project. But that's all I had to say. It sounds though like something that you want to pursue and not, make it some negative thing right now. What I'm seeing in the council is just kind of negative, like negative energy and, kind of like all of this theatrics instead of, wow, that was, that's a great offer. Let's consider that, if there are other offers, what I've heard is that there haven't been other offers, but if there are other offers that are comparable, then, why wouldn't they be considered? It's a governmental body, but that's what I had to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Murray. Anyone else tonight? Sir.
Well, my name's Daryl Pining, 5056 Village Green Drive. The first thing I want to do is make an offer to City Council. You you talked about an innovation and a technology day. It was characterized two different ways. I'm part of a robotics company, and I'd love to offer up some robotics when you actually get to the point where you want to show people how easy it is to do something in a complex space. I'm happy to help. Happy to help. In regards to this whole, I'm just now learning about this investment, and the lines between the 4 and 3 are clearly visible to the public right now if you're paying any attention. I guess the point of advice maybe would be if I get your name wrong all the time, but Stricula, remember Stricula, Nelson, Stricula, Councilman Nelson and Chance. Maybe if you, one thing that would help the public is if you step back and said, what might be good about this proposal that is that's on the table, so you could think about what's positive about it. And maybe on the other side with the other 4 and the mayor, if you were to say, what are the challenge pieces? What are the issues that could potentially negatively impact the community, and bring forth a true debate, because true debate is kind of the foundation of our democracy. And I think debate is an art form lost at the national level, at the state level, and at the city level. And I think you're exemplifying that lost art right now. So I think you can do something better for the, you're doing great stuff. I don't want this to sound negative. I just think you can bring forth a more clear message so the public can see it. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pining. We do have something annually called Innovation Week, and if you call the city, they can talk to you about that, and you can find out what's possible. I'm not sure, do we usually do it in the fall? I'm trying to remember now because 2020 happened and we didn't do it, but.
Yes, typically October, tied with National Manufacturing Day.
So we have different businesses share machines and show off the things that they make, and we try to engage students in print and show them what apprenticeship programs are available, and we've toured factories, and it's really a fun week. So we'll have to connect you with that.
Yeah, I have nothing personal to gain out of it. It's just I'm later in my career and happy to just help younger people and the city in that regard. I can tell you the company later, but happy to do that, and I will connect out. It's just if you wanted something real tangible that can be utilized in your endeavors, happy to help. We actually about a year and a half ago had all of the Chamber of Commerce, Cincinnati Chamber of Commerce, actually visit us up in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. So I don't even know where the hell that went, to be honest with you. But the offer's on the table.
Thank you for that wonderful offer and for the advice. And we are looking at all the pros and cons and trying to be very, very careful about this process we've been in with these proposals. Thank you so much. Anyone else tonight? Anybody online? All right, I don't see any hands, so let's, can someone take the floor and make a motion to adjourn?
I'll
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Yes.
Any opposed? Thank you so much. Good night, everybody.